pair of judges is suspended and arrested this week in a couple different parts of the country, one of whom being here in Wisconsin. I don't know why my state suddenly became a flashpoint for political discourse and dissidence, but yeah, we, especially around the Milwaukee area and Waukesha as well, we seem to have a lot going on, and I'm not 100% sure why, but we're going to talk about what happened with this particular situation and where we go from there. There's going to be a moment where I anger my more MAGA followers because I'm not really comfortable with this, and I'm going to be completely right out and say this. There are a couple of Trump ideas that are going on this week that I'm going to be not comfortable with. But we'll talk about this, what's going on with this, where it goes, and what we do with this. In other news, Amazon gets in a tussle with the Trump administration, talking about, well, why they're putting their tariff surcharge on the bottom of their receipts. I'm going to offer a different take to this one, actually. I know that Bezos got off the phone with Trump and it's all good and this isn't going to happen anymore, but I want to see this kind of stuff. I'll tell you why at about the 1 hour mark here in the show. So we'll talk about that, what's going on with that, where we go from there. Impeachment fever has gripped D.C. Yes, it's okay when Democrats call to impeach anybody. But if you dare say that you want to impeach a judge as a Republican, you're a dangerous conspiracy theorist, and you just hate America, and you want your political enemies prosecuted and persecuted and everything else. But we'll talk about that and all the fun propaganda that goes along with that and where we go with that and what happens there. And Virginia Giuffre, known Epstein accuser, has sadly taken her own life. There are a couple of ways that I will be not able to say that because of YouTube's terms of service, even though I'm not talking about anything else that I have done or will do or possibly could do, or the terms of service just say encouraging the activity. And, well, I'm not going to say it like that. I will be dancing around words like a kid in dance class. I don't know. I don't have a good analogy for that one today, I guess. I don't know. But we'll be talking about that and what's going on with that there. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. So get your coffee or your energy drink if you prefer. Stay on the road if you've got your kids in the car because, well, no texting and driving. Absolutely. We'll see you on the other side of the title card. No phone, no food, no pets. I ain't got no cigarettes. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Let's try this again with a microphone on. That song is called Trekkin'. It's from DJ Cutman from his album Free to Stream. Guys, if you are not listening to the Video Game Study Lounge on your off time, or Radio Cutman for that matter, what are you doing with your lives? Now, I know there is a regular viewer of this program who is not listening to Video Game Study Lounge or Radio Cutman, but there are different reasons for that. I don't want to get into that. If he wants to come into the live chat and tell his story, that's one thing. Actually, I want to see if I'll have him on Ed Talk, and maybe we'll talk about that. But you know how Ed Talk goes, is we can go talk about anything. Anyway, hi! My name is Jay Edgar. Good morning, Vietnam. Hi. I've never seen that movie, by the way. We'll be talking about a movie I have seen and we watched again recently on the bottom of the show when we talk about things I liked today. But hi, good morning. We've got a lot to go over here. Now, honestly and admittedly, the news stack is not as packed as it usually is. It's slowed down, kinda. Maybe we won't sit here until noon, although I had breakfast this morning, so maybe I can go the distance. He's going the distance. He's going for speed. She is all alone in her time of need. You can use that as morning opening lyrics. I love that song, by the way. I hate it when when musicians get as political as they do, and I understand that it's an inherently political environment that they exist in, but like enjoying Cake's music as much as I do, and then having to read the stupid crap that they post on X, it's a bit of a dichotomy. Regardless, we do have a bunch to go over here today, so head on out, strap yourselves in, we're not heading on out yet. A couple rules here, of course. I have, or myself, limited my language. I slip occasionally, I apologize. So, you can feel free if you are taking your kids to school. If you are commuting with a carpool, you can have this on, and you won't hear the F-bomb, the S-bomb. There are a couple that I go in, I say damn and hell and things like that, but I do make a concerted effort to not use the gamer words. To make this totally safe for you to stream with whoever you have in the vehicle with you. So that is my rule for you. If you are driving and commuting, you are not to text and drive. So I do love to see your live chats, but stay out of the live chat if you have other people in your vehicle with you, or even yourself, because that is dangerous. I want to see you come back for stream after stream. And before we get started, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, which is now the weekly notice, as Steven has taken some time off to focus on his music career, which is awesome, by the way. I love hearing the music that he puts out. He is fantastic, and you guys should go and check him out. The music that we have at the bottom of the stream as we close out is a Steven Ignoramus original that was gifted to me. So go and check that out, and go check out Crime Land with Katie Zed as well. Go check that channel out. A great friend of the show. One of the first people that I made announcements to when things changed in my life, so go and check that out. And they're both great people. I have been in the presence of both of them. I haven't been to Steven's new house. I actually wasn't with to his last house either, but I was to his place in DC. That was pretty cool. But yeah, go check them both out. They're awesome people. I'm so blessed to have them in my lives. The Porch Boys have still not made a resurgence yet, but they will be doing so somewhere in the near future as well, it seems. Go check them out. You can get in contact with all of these people on my Discord, even though they don't really talk much in there. They're all in there, so go and check that out. And let's get started with the news for the day. We're going to start with the finance. We'll check in with the live chat as well for the people who are here, who are not commuting, who are following the rules like good friends. Yeah, I didn't have the music on. I did not have the music channel on OBS, so yeah, there was nothing, because I have one channel that listens and rebroadcasts everything that's on my desktop. That was off. I don't know how or why. There's going to be a bit of learning curve, by the way, coming up in the next few streams. Not this one, because I didn't find out about the gift until about 9 o'clock last night, and well, then I had to turn around and start getting everything set up for Contemporary for the morning. But a certain regular live chatter in here named Pamuria got me a Stream Deck, something I've had my eye on for years, actually. And I don't know what all capability I can do with it. I know I can set sounders to it, but I think there are other things that I can do with that as well, just to make everything push button instead of going through and trying to go find the right window and spinning around with my mouse. I can make this more like a radio show, so hopefully that will do better. That'll be coming up in the next few streams. I think I might stream video games today, but I do want to take some time and play around with that and see if I can at least get it started, even if I don't have all my sounders set up by the time we start playing Skyward Sword. Fanning is in DC today. Will not catch the show, but he did share out to X. Thank you. Palm actually, I think she was taunting him. Said safe travels, but he's in DC, and I think safe travels in DC might be impossible at this point. He'll be doing the box step around the unaliving topic. That's the one I could have done. That's what I could have done. I said box step. Box step. Yeah. That's what I'm going to do when we talk about Chew Free. That's what I'm kind of mad at myself that I missed that one. We'll add it to our list of movies to watch. Good Morning Vietnam was awesome. I can imagine. Robin Williams is a good actor, and I can definitely see just looking into that, and yeah, in a situation like that, yeah, I can see where that would have been a good one. Alright, anyway, we have got a bunch to go over here today. Let's get started with the finance for the day. So looking at yesterday's Dow Jones, which was at 40,868.11 points. That was a 221 point jump, and it looks like it is already starting to jump back up again on the morning. Let's get a refresh on this, but I got a couple articles with this. Now, it's surprising to see the Dow coming back and jumping at this point, because, well, it sunk for a little bit to begin with, but the futures just launched it. And now we got some correction going back with that, but yeah, it's interesting to see where people are saying, it's a recession, it's horrible, we're in a recession, even though, well, we'll talk about timing and everything else with that, but it's a horrible recession, you guys, oh my god. And yet, the investors, the rich people, they're still buying for whatever reason. They might be evil this time. When they were all selling off because of the tariffs, they were good and they were blessed and they hated Trump and they were standing up to the Trump agenda. But, yeah, now they're not. Now they're going to be bad again. I just want to see if IBD is still paywalled. I do have other articles queued up for this, but no, they're open again. I wonder what was causing that before, but let's talk about what's going on in the finance for the morning. Oh, do we have a robotic viewer here? Oh, no, not anymore. He got put in timeout. He gone. Bye-bye. I appreciate your attempts at capitalism, but realistically, no, I would like to have you be real when you're here. So I can ask questions about my best viewers, followers, and primes. Dow Jones rallies after surprise jobless claims. Meta Microsoft surge on earnings. All right, this is from Scott Latonin. Cursor over here, please. The Dow and other major stock indices rose on Thursday as Wall Street digested the latest unemployment data. Nvidia and Tesla rose, and Meta Platforms and Microsoft surged on the stock market today following earnings reports. After the opening bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 0.5%, or nearly 200 points. The S&P gained 0.8, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq moved up 1.8. So it was like a rocket today, or yesterday, I should say. The 10-year Treasury yield ticked over to 4.15% early Thursday. Meanwhile, oil prices dropped as West Texas Intermediate futures traded around $58 a barrel. Dude, the oil prices, the gas prices coming off the oil prices have been wild. I don't know what they're doing in wherever you live. Tom is the best viewer. She supports the live streaming. Absolutely. And she brings me a glass when I say that I shouldn't be drinking something that's branded on stream. And pours even the drink into the glass for me. And rearranges the backdrop. In the middle of the title card. Palm actually is the best viewer. I'm not going to lie. That's awesome. By the way, if the company who made the delicious energy drink that is inside the J. Edgar cup were paying me, it would be in their vessel with their branding logo on it, not my branding logo. I assure you it's delicious, and I'll even say the name, Celsius. It's good. But they didn't pay to have their logo on the stream, so it's going to be my logo instead. Anyway, on the gas prices, I know, and I didn't look and see what they were yesterday. I know we ran. Did we? No, we didn't run to town yesterday even. I know in town they're a little bit slower to change where I live. Out of town, a few miles. But in town, they dropped 12 cents a gallon right after I put 30 gallons in my pickup. They dropped 12 cents a gallon, and then they were back up 11 cents within 24 hours. At the same station, by the way. So it's kind of being a whipsaw effect on the gas prices right now, and part of that is because of where the oil is trading. Among the ETFs, the Invesco QQQ Trust climbed 1.8%, while the SPDR S&P 500 ETF moved up 0.8% after the open. Tesla stock climbed 0.7% in early action on Thursday after snapping a 6-day win streak. On Wednesday, shares have bullishly climbed above their 50-day moving average, but are finding resistance around the 200-day line. Understandable with tariffs and uncertainty. That's... people get so much money and they cash out. The next key level to watch, led by Chief Executive Elon Musk, the electric vehicle maker remains around 42% off its record high of 488.54 reached on December 18th. Nvidia stock jumped more than 4% in the morning trades. Shares of the artificial intelligence giant are finding resistance around the 10-week line, an important line to watch. All right, on the jobless claims, on the economic front, the U.S. Labor Department's weekly unemployment claims unexpectedly jumped to 241,000. Claims were expected to ease to 221,000 versus 222,000 from the previous week, according to Econoday. Facebook parent Meta gave a stronger than expected sales forecast and beat the first quarter estimates, likely easing some tariff fears for investors. Zuckerberg's social media heavyweight also increased its 2025 spending forecast for capital expenditures with a focus on its AI ambitions. Meta stock jumped 6% in the early morning trade. Late on Wednesday, Microsoft crushed Wall Street's targets for its fiscal third quarter. Microsoft stock surged 10% on Thursday. That's where your NASDAQ was just shooting up versus your industrials. Other key earnings movers, including the Cheesecake Factory, which means, hey, the economy might not be as bad as you think if people are going to go out to the Cheesecake Factory more and more often. It's a good one. And I've said its praises on things that I liked before, but holy crap is it expensive. Maybe if the boys on the Big Bang Theory didn't go to eat at the Cheesecake Factory as often as they did, they wouldn't be renting them, a pair of apartments still. eBay, Eli Lilly, Howmet Aerospace, MasterCard, and McDonald's, along with Qualcomm, Robinhood Markets, Roblox, and Sprouts Farmers Market. Shares of the Cheesecake Factory climbed 1% in early trading, while the eBay stock climbed 1.2%. Eli Lilly plunged 6%, while Howmet shares surged 6%. MasterCard gained 0.5%, and McDonald's declined 1.5%. In addition, Qualcomm tumbled 8%, while Robinhood advanced 2%. Roblox moved up 2%. Finally, Sprouts shares gained 0.8% in early morning action. So the Dow has extended a win streak, so we got a lot of stuff that's moving here. And yeah, with 241,000 new jobless claims, that is going to push the Fed to ease the prime rate. That's where I was going with that one, to ease the interest rates off of that. But I mean, it still sucks that 241,000 people lost their jobs this week, but that's where we go. All right. Let's grab one from CNBC. Dow rises more than 100 points. The S&P 500 books its third straight losing month. This is live updates from Sean Conlon and Pia Singh. The S&P posted narrow gains Wednesday with a bout of volatile trading after data showed the U.S. economy contracted in the first quarter and investors' recession fears ramped up. The broad market index advanced 0.15% to close at 5569.06, while the Nasdaq slipped 0.09 to end at 17,446.34. The Dow added 141.74 points, or 0.35%, settling at 4669.36. While the S&P and the Dow ultimately notched their seventh consecutive winning day, investors endured a rocky session at their lows. The S&P was down nearly 2.3%, while the Dow slid more than 780 points. First quarter GDP declined at a 0.3% rate. The Commerce Department said on Wednesday a rapid reversal from a 2.4% increase in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Some traders noted that figures were skewed by a 41% surge in imports in the last quarter as companies look to get ahead of Trump's tariffs. That's also a fair point, by the way. The report also showed a big slowdown in consumer spending and a decline in government expenditures amid Elon Musk's Doge cuts. We'll be talking about that in a couple articles when we talk about recession fears. Other data pointed to an economy that was still hanging in there. Consumer spending in the first quarter grew at its slowest quarterly pace since 23. A separate report showed that spending was up 0.7% in March, topping the 0.5% economists expected. In a post on Truth Social, Trump blamed a Biden overhang following the weak GDP numbers, telling people to be patient and that his policies will take a while to take effect. The continual sequence of policy reversals has led to a very high level of uncertainty for businesses and investors, said Scott Helfstein, head of the investment strategy at Global X ETFs. This report should be a canary in the coal mine for the new admin, but perhaps their willingness to inflict economic pain in pursuit of long-term goals was underestimated. So that's how they are going to try to push this at this point. But I mean, I think investors are looking past it right now. I do. And the market is in neutral sentiment. No, it's not. From CNN Business, S&P and the Dow close out April in the red as economy contracts for the first time since 2022. From John Taufigi. April was one of the wildest months in recent memory for markets, capped off by a key data release that showed the economy shrank last quarter for the first time in years. Balder crap. Well, I guess it has been, quote, years, but yeah, we hit a recession under the Biden admin. It's just the news didn't want to tell us about it. We'll talk about that in a bit. After tumbling Wednesday morning, the S&P and the Dow gradually clawed back and pushed into the green to close out the day. The Dow gained 142 points, or 0.35%. The S&P rose 0.15%. Wow. I can read today. The tech-heavy Nasdaq fell 0.09%, so it basically ended the day flat. Stocks initially fell Wednesday after a fresh Commerce Department data showed the U.S. economy contracted for the first quarter. For the first time since 2022, Trump's policy agenda has injected enormous uncertainty into businesses across the U.S. and has shaken consumer confidence. I'm confident. I'm a consumer. I'm going to consume! Stock paired some losses, with new data showed inflation slowed in March, and the Fed's preferred inflation gauge cooled, matching expectations and offering brief reassurance that inflation, while elevated, has been easing. Trump's tariffs are expected to push up prices again. We'll see. Yeah, we'll talk about that when we talk about Amazon. I was about to go into a rant, but we'll talk about that in just a bit. The S&P dropped more than 11% in the first 8 days of the month as Trump on April 2nd unveiled his reciprocal tariffs. After turmoil in the bond market and Trump's 90-day pause on most tariffs, the benchmark index has since regained the ground, but ended the month down 0.76%. As stock futures dropped Wednesday morning, Trump posted on social media, This is Biden's stock market, not Trump's. I didn't take over until January 20th. Technically true. But everything was rising and you were taking the credit for that as you came into office. So, I don't necessarily believe that either. Tariffs will soon start kicking in, and companies are starting to move into the U.S. at record numbers. Our country will boom, but we have to get rid of the Biden overhang. This will take a while and has nothing to do with tariffs. Only that he left us with very bad numbers, the worst numbers. Nobody had numbers like this. But when the boom begins, it will be like no other. Be patient. Man, that man loves his caps lock. Do you think he's doing it intentionally, or do you think he's just hitting shift after he goes after a period on his phone and that just locks it into caps? The market during Trump's second term recorded the third worst performance during its first 100 days of any presidential term in history, followed only by Nixon and Ford. We don't expect it'll be some sort of sudden recovery unless all of a sudden the tariffs are all removed. Boy, that doesn't have any political implications at all, said Kelly Bouchelon, senior partner at Soundview Wealth Advisors. And make no mistake about it, this was very clearly brought on by the uncertainty surrounding the tariffs, period. In comparison, the market soared 5% across Trump's first 100 days of his first term and 8.5% across Biden's first 100 days. According to data from CFRA Research, the S&P soared back-to-back gains of more than 20% across Biden's last 2 years in office, a feat not achieved since the 90s. Yeah, and I believe that one too. But that's what we have going on for that. I do want to talk a bit about the recession fears because, people are sitting here and trying to... I want to say they're just trying to make a self-fulfilling prophecy of this. Let's grab one from Politico, inviting a recession. Harris assails Trump over economy, democracy in return to stage, which means that she's about to sell a book. From Dustin Gardner and Melanie Mason. Kamala Harris returned to the national stage on Wednesday and issued a call to action, urging Americans to fight back against what she cast as Trump's ruinous economic policies and assault on democracy. Well, realistically, the only way you fight back against ruinous economic policies is buy American. It's the opposite message that progressives usually put out. You build an economy that's free of the government. The former vice president, in her most extensive comments since losing to Trump, excoriated his trade policies, defied some federal court orders, and pushed to slash spending for a host of federal programs. It's an agenda, a narrow, self-serving vision of America, when we should be the ones that are self-serving, where they punish truth-tellers, favor loyalists, and cash in on their power and leave everyone to fend for themselves, she said Wednesday night, all while abandoning allies and retreating from the world. Harris called Trump's seesawing tariffs the greatest man-made economic crisis in modern political presidential history, blaming his policies for the rising cost of household goods, shrinking retirement accounts, and tightening job market. I don't know. Every time I go to the grocery store, it seems to be getting a little bit cheaper lately, so... I don't know. She warned his tariffs are clearly inviting a recession. She delivered her rebuke of Trump's first 100 days to Democratic donors who filled a ballroom in San Francisco, so captive audience of people who were already going to vote for her. Or already did vote for her. They're, by the way, means testing her again for 2028. If they are intelligent, that's not who they're going to put on the ticket. But I don't believe that they are intelligent. We might see Harris Vance. Oh man, that would be hilarious. Let's see. It marked her second public appearance within weeks in her home state as she mulls whether to run for governor next year or seek the presidency again in 28 after a bruising loss. While her comments about Trump were biting, Harris's speech bore many of the hallmarks of a conventional political address, down to the tightly choreographed delivery and poll-tested approach accusing Trump of not meaningfully improving the lives of everyday people, and included a few new details about her vision for the party, capital T, capital P, and the state, capital T, capital S, and even fewer hints about her own political path forward. Harris has kept a relatively low profile since leaving Washington, thankfully, which has left political watchers dissecting every move with Talmudic scrutiny. I should screen cap that right there and put it in the Discord, just to see my friend Midget's reaction. She vowed she was not going anywhere at a national conference of black women in Orange County in early April. So, and I do want to talk just a bit about this. Number one, the news and the history books are not going to show what IBD pointed out and what CNN pointed out about the contraction in the economy in 2022. Because they're not going to call that a recession, even though technically by the definition of recession, which got changed in the dictionary, we were in a recession at that point. 2 back-to-back quarters of economic shrinkage, which we had in 2021 going into 2022, indicates a recession. Now, with that being said, it does seem that there's a push right now to say that we are in a recession right now, even though there was a 2.4% growth at the end of Biden's first term, on the last quarter of that, and this now being the first quarter since then where we're recording an economic shrinkage. It's something that I expected to see. In fact, I actually expected it to be a little bit worse than what it wound up being, based on the fact that you're sitting here and you're reversing New Deal style policies, FDR style policies. When we come back and we look at the fact that in the federal government, in the federal workforce, especially in the executive branch, there were hundreds, thousands, possibly millions of jobs that didn't really have a purpose yet at that point, but were put out there to give fresh economic graduates that didn't really have anything else that they could do because of the way that jobs were going towards the end of the Biden admin, a chance to have a 6-figure salary and put money back into the economy. It was a lot like the New Deal was, where we sat here, we tried to spur economic growth. So we're going to sit here and spend government money and print and inflate and increase the cost of your goods with inflated money because we need to put people to work no matter what. So we might not need this road right here, but we're going to build it because we might need it in the future. Hey, there's a bridge across this river. We don't need it because we have a bridge up here and we have a bridge up here. We don't have the volume on either one of these bridges to justify it, but we're going to build it through. We're going to hammer it through. Just because that means that we're buying product and we're putting people back to work, building a bridge. And that, to a lesser extent, is what Biden did at the end of his term. Even into the middle of his term. With layoffs and so many jobs coming back out and shutting down, we might not need this many employees in the EPA, or the Department of Education, or the Department of the Treasury. We might not need this many employees, but we might need them in the future. So let's go get them on now. Let's give them a 6-figure salary and send them on their way so they can go back out and start spurning and buying stuff. So when you undo some of that, especially given the fact that there really is no purpose and we don't have the tax revenue to do anything with that, yes, it's taking a large amount of spending power away from people or otherwise would have had such a spending power. Yes, that is going to contract the economy. That in and of itself is going to contract the economy. Couple that with the import market and what's happening with that, which, as I've said before on the tariffs thing, that's going to be a tough side of things. Because you can't get people to redo the infrastructure, rebuild the factories, unless you give them an incentive to do so, and giving them an incentive to do so means making their imported products more expensive, so they would prefer to rely on American workforce. This used to be a Democrat position. I don't know why the heck that changed. The union had a lot to do with the fact that that was a Democratic liberal position. And as was pointed out in other articles, the other side of that is the reduction in spending by the federal government, again, in New Deal style spending. Vong has joined us just in time to talk about the judge in our state. Well, we got one article here before that. From Axios, 100 Days of Trump's Impact on the U.S. Dollar, from Emily Peck. The dollar has fallen nearly 10% in Trump's first 100 days, the steepest drop for a new admin this century. The start of the second Trump admin has upended Americans' economic standing in the world. The U.S. dollar index in Trump's first 100 days fell 9.5% compared with a 2.1% drop in the first 100 days of his first term. The value of the greenback increased 4.5% in W's first 100 days, and when the country was headed into a recession, it also rose slightly for both Obama and Biden. Investors use the dollar in good times and bad, making it a safe haven, as Axios' Felix Salmon recently explained. Now, as recession fears rise, primarily due to tariff uncertainty, investors are shedding greenbacks. Investors stopped treating the dollar as a flight to safety currency and started treating it as a risk currency, a risk asset. Steve Kameen, a former Federal Reserve economist now at the American Enterprise Institute, told Axios earlier this month. Trump's policies, particularly those broad and constantly changing tariffs, have eroded American exceptionalism. How? We still have the aircraft carriers. So one of the frustrating things about all of this is the fact that people are saying, oh, well, he's disbanding the petrodollar, and, BRICS is going to come back out, and they're going to buy up all the oil and push us out. Yeah, we still have the aircraft carriers, guys. We still guard American shipping. We still take care of most of Europe. That's not going away anytime soon. Hate to tell you, so. I would say that's probably closer to economic terrorism at this point, with a lot of foreign investors trying to push public policy in the U.S. And as soon as somebody is in that foreign investors can control again, oh yeah, no, we definitely want. We want to use your dollar. It's a safe currency. All right, let's talk about the judge. Or judge not, if you will. From CNBC, federal authorities arrest 2 judges in escalation of Trump's immigration crackdown. I'm not going to lie, I don't know a lot about this story, and I've tried to come back and follow it, but it's been changing so fast that I have not been able to keep up with it, especially with most of it happening during my, quote, work week. But I'm not real comfortable with this. A judge harboring a fugitive? Yes, I don't care for that itself. But I feel like there had to have been an intermediate step between do nothing and going guns a-blazing into a Milwaukee courtroom and haul the judge out in cuffs. And I'm not real big about the idea of going back and making examples of people. I mean, that's what Democrats do. I get that Trump is a former Democrat, but still. Federal authorities have arrested a Wisconsin judge and a former New Mexico judge in 2 separate cases accusing them of interfering with the Trump admin immigration enforcement efforts. Milwaukee Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan, who's going to be the brunt of our conversation, was arrested Friday morning and charged with obstruction. She is accused of helping an undocumented immigrant evade arrest by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers, and after he appeared in his courtroom her courtroom on April 18th. Dugan's arrest came just a day after authorities arrested former New Mexico Judge Joel Cano and his wife on charges related to the Cano's reported harboring of an undocumented immigrant with alleged ties to the notorious Tren de Aragua gang. Now, in the Cano case, and that's a part of the reason that one didn't make the national headlines as much as Dugan did, is that Cano was doing this and acting as a private citizen. He is retired, he was off duty, harboring a fugitive as a private citizen. The fact that he was a judge formerly has almost no bearing on this. The Dugan case, from what I understand, was that she was physically obstructing federal agents while in courtroom, sworn in, and actively sitting on the bench. Which is where I still think that the Wisconsin bar and DOJ should have stepped in before setting her back down into a federal holding facility. It's not that, again, you can be harboring a fugitive in any capacity, whether you're in the robe, on the bench, driving down the street, in the Home Depot parking lot. You can harbor an illegal fugitive, illegal alien in a number of different places. But in doing so as a public official, while performing your duties as a public official, while you're actually clocked in, even though I know their salary and they don't get clocked in per se, it's a different story than the guy who was retired and just doing so as a private citizen. So, excuse me. The actions against judges mark a sharp escalation from the Trump admin's aggressive efforts to remove undocumented immigrants from the U.S. Nobody should be surprised by the arrest of 2 judges, said Homan, Trump's border czar, in a statement on Friday. Lisa Payne. I wonder if that's the Lisa that I think it is. I hope so. That'd be cool. Even though, well, I guess it's midday. If that is the Lisa I think that it is, I guess it's midday where she is. I'm used to doing this at night where it'd be like 2 in the morning where Lisa is. If you actively impede our enforcement efforts, or if you knowingly harbor or conceal illegal aliens from ICE, you will be prosecuted, Homan wrote on X. Dugan's arrest drew swift condemnation from Trump's critics. Well, Trump breathing draws swift condemnation from Trump's critics. So, that's not the headline, that's the name of the newspaper. Americans are watching with outrage the stunning news that Trump's FBI has arrested a sitting judge in Milwaukee for alleged obstruction of an immigration arrest, said Jamie Raskin of Maryland in a statement. This is a drastic escalation and a dangerous new front in the Trump authoritarian campaign of trying to bully, intimidate, or impeach judges who won't follow his dictates, said Raskin, a ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. We must do whatever we can to defend the independent judiciary in America. Cano, a former Doña Ana County Magistrate Judge, and his wife Nancy Cano, both face charges of tampering with evidence, jail records show. Cano, who had served the bench since 2011, submitted his resignation letter in March 3rd, days after Homeland Security raided his home. Court documents obtained by NPC News show. Federal agents had received a tip in January from Christian Ortega, an undocumented immigrant from Venezuela whom authorities suspect of being a Tren-de-Aragua member, and others were staying on Cano's property. Ortega is charged with a separate federal case in New Mexico with possessing a firearm as an illegal alien. A sworn affidavit in Cano's criminal case said Homeland Security agents conducted another raid at the former judge's home on Thursday in search of a cell phone they believed was Ortega's. According to the affidavit, in an interview with agents, Cano said that he destroyed the cell phone that belonged to Ortega by smashing it with a hammer and discarded the remaining pieces in the city trash dumpster approximately 5 weeks ago. Yeah, but it's still got that little tracking chip that shows the last known location. With it being in your home when you smashed it with a hammer, that's the last place that it pinged the satellite. So yeah, they can pretty much walk right up to the point where the workbench where you went. I don't know if the click went through the microphone, but it's gone. Alright, let's see. And I think I know where Vong is going with this. I'm going to talk about this as well. It's not that she harbored a fugitive illegal alien. She directly and actively aided him in his attempts to evade ICE. The illegal alien was in her courtroom when she heard that ICE was waiting outside for him. She called the head of the federal detail in, told him to talk to the chief of the courthouse. Then while he was doing that, she had the illegal alien and his lawyers come back in the judge's chambers with her. And then she led them out the courthouse via a back door that goes directly from the chambers to the street. So, and there are a few things on that I want to touch on too, because, well, I'm always looking for the times where our friends on the left come back out and say, come on, slap the cuffs on, you know you want to. They're good at doing that kind of stuff. Cano has just denied any knowledge that the 3 people were affiliated with the gang, which, to me, that in and of itself is believable. They see a Hispanic man, they either believe or are pushing the propaganda that evil Trump man is just going to take anybody that's brown, sweep them up and ship them over the border, and they say, come stay in our house, it's huge, it's private property, they need a warrant to come back in here. Alright, in the Wisconsin arrest, a U.S. Marshal Service spokeswoman confirmed to CNBC that Dugan was arrested at 8:30 a.m. local time on courthouse property. Dugan was released on bond after making her initial appearance Friday morning in U.S. District Court in Milwaukee before Magistrate Judge Stephen Dryas. I don't know why that name sounds so familiar to me. According to her case docket, Dugan's arraignment and plea proceeding is set for May 15th, the docket shows. Milwaukee County Circuit Court Chief Judge Carl Ashley told NBC that the Judicial Code of Conduct restricts him from commenting on the matter. Correct. But said that Dugan's court calendar will be covered by another judge as needed. Kash Patel announced on X that the FBI believes Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from Eduardo Flores Ruiz as agents were attempting to arrest him in the courthouse. Thankfully, our agents chased down the perp on foot, and he's been in custody since, but the judge's obstruction created an increased danger to the public, Patel said in the Post. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported Tuesday that the FBI was looking into Dugan's conduct surrounding an attempted arrest by ICE agents in the courthouse on April 18th. On that day, Dugan became visibly angry after learning ICE agents were waiting in the hallway to arrest Flores Ruiz after a hearing in his criminal battery case, according to an FBI special agent's sworn affidavit unsealed on Friday. So, I don't believe for a second that she didn't know that this was happening before the court sat down. And again, I'm looking at a lot of this, and I'm thinking to myself that a lot of this is the temptation, wave it out from, come on, I'm going to defy your orders. I'm going to be a bad girl. You know you want to do it. Come on, arrest me. It's political martyrdom. Come on, arrest me. I can sit and write a manifesto from jail. Whereas especially in her official capacity. Now, the Kano thing, that's a different story entirely. Like I said, he was acting as a private citizen. He wasn't acting as an officer of the court. And honestly, Dugan's suspension is rightfully so. It's probably a rare right decision from a very, very activistic Wisconsin Supreme Court. Because this should have all been dealt with internally. Possibly with the FBI investigating and offering assistance to the Wisconsin Circuit Court to make the decision on what they do, and then if she is suspended afterwards, then address whether or not there is capacity to arrest her as a private citizen after her suspension. But we are so soaked in propaganda at this point. And a lot of people that want to start a civil war. Actually, I should have brought... I didn't do it today. I knew what I was going to do with this story because I saved my beanie. It went through the wash yesterday. I was going to throw it on and I was going to start talking about Civil War. I missed the gag. It's sitting out in the chair right outside that door, by the way. I missed the gag, you guys. Lame. Dugan and another judge entered the hallway and confronted the arrest team, telling one deportation officer that he needed a judicial warrant to make an arrest instead of an admin warrant, which is not true, by the way. Another reason, again, that I thought that a lot of this was planned out to create the martyr. Because all the paid shills started bandying around the term judicial warrant, a term that they did not know the day before. Dugan then ordered them to go to the chief judge's office, it said. After returning to her courtroom, Dugan escorted Flores Ruiz and his counsel through a jury door, which leads to a non-public area of the building, the affidavit said, citing multiple witnesses. Flores Ruiz and his attorney then returned to the hallway and took an elevator down to leave the building, the affidavit said. After being told that Flores Ruiz was in front of the courthouse, agents ran toward him and identified themselves as law enforcement officers, it said. Flores Ruiz turned around and sprinted down the street. A foot chase ensued, according to the affidavit. Is this real life or is this an episode of Law and Order? The agents pursued Flores Ruiz the entire length of the courthouse and ultimately apprehended him near the intersection of West State and 10th. Hey, I've been there recently. The last time I shook Stephen Ignoramus's hand was right there. Actually. Dugan's criminal complaint shows that she's been charged with concealing an individual to prevent his discovery and arrest, obstructing or impeding a proceeding before a federal department or agency. So, that is where that stands. Let's talk about some of the backlash to this one. Usually I reserve this voice when I talk about our friends at NPR, but today we share this with our friends with WPR. That is Whiskey Papa Romeo, Wisconsin Public Radio. And remember, even if this is not our national public radio, we still need you to hit that donate button because WPR is only 10% government funded and needs your help to make up the difference. So hit that donate button because they cannot tell you that anybody who's enforcing the law is evil if it's immigration law. But if they're enforcing the law against Republicans, it is good. And Republicans hate cops. We can't tell you that unless you hit that donate button. So, Whiskey Papa Romeo. I don't have a good acronym for this, but let's see what they have to say. This is from Rich Kramer. Milwaukee County Circuit Judge is facing federal criminal charges after she allegedly attempted to help a man avoid arrest. We know that. Dugan issued a statement through an attorney on Friday afternoon that she has committed herself to the rule of law and principles of due process for her entire career as a lawyer and a judge. Judge Dugan will defend herself vigorously, and she looks forward to being exonerated, according to the statement. According to a federal criminal complaint, agents with ICE, the FBI, and the Drug Enforcement Administration went to Milwaukee Courthouse on April 18th to serve an administrative arrest warrant on Eduardo Flores Ruiz, who was in Dugan's courtroom facing charges of misdemeanor battery. The complaint claims that Ruiz was seated in the jury box rather than courtroom's gallery. A courtroom deputy said they heard Dugan say something like, "Wait, come with me," to Flores Ruiz and his attorney as they were walking towards a public exit from the courtroom. There we go. WPR, we print ridiculousness. She's kicking. That makes me smile. On Friday, Krish Patel posted on social media that Dugan was arrested on charges of obstruction after evidence of Dugan obstructing an immigration arrest operation last week. We believe Dugan intentionally misdirected federal agents away from the subject to be arrested in her courthouse. Eduardo Flores Ruiz allowing the subject, an illegal alien, to evade arrest, he wrote, even though she didn't. We told everybody yesterday. The FBI didn't immediately respond to requests for confirmation or comment on the arrest. A spokesperson for the U.S. Marshal Service told WPR an FBI arrested Dugan at 8:30 a.m. in the Milwaukee County Courthouse. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirmed the arrest in a social media post just after 11 a.m. No one is above the law, Bondi said. Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson said federal authorities' decision to arrest Dugan in the courthouse rather than schedule a court appearance was overly dramatic and calculated for effect. Wow, Cavalier Johnson can say something that's actually correct. That never happens. And that's where I think some of the problem comes in with this. Again, Dugan's conduct, illegal, and warranting some sort of disciplinary action for that. Both from especially the bench, but also, if necessary, from the FBI, ICE, etc. The issue that we have with this is we're doing this, we're making this public in a way that it didn't need to be out and be public like this. Kash Patel practically salivating over the ability to come out and say, "Haha, I arrested a political enemy." I mean, this news was going to come out no matter what. But in a situation like this, it's very easy to go back and let Democrats go back and make fools out of themselves doing something like this. And they will do just that. They will absolutely make fools out of themselves. They're just trying to have this show of force, and in the process of doing this in the courthouse where people have to go for court proceedings, they're scaring people away from participating in the process, Johnson said. I'm not even going to parrot the cliches that Democrats bandied about the January 6ers and current President Trump. But if a person really wanted to do so, he could just come back and comment out, oh, she should have just followed the law, and shit like that. But that's cringe. So, we're not going to do that here. Let's keep going. Who is Hannah Dugan, judge arrested by FBI in Wisconsin? From Elizabeth Crisp. A relatively unremarkable person who just became famous for absolutely nothing. That's who Hannah Dugan is. Judge Dugan wholeheartedly regrets and protests her arrest. It was not made in the interest of public safety. Craig Mastantuono, who is representing Dugan, said during a hearing Friday. That's a Bush guy, by the way. We'll be talking about that. Dugan, 65, is a Milwaukee native who was first elected to the bench in 2016. She ran unopposed for re-election in 22, and her current term runs through 28. Circuit Court judicial races in Wisconsin are nonpartisan. They're not, by the way. She previously served as executive director of the nonprofit Catholic Charities of Southeast Wisconsin from 06 to 09. It was an adjunct assistant professor at Marquette, and she was an attorney with Legal Aid Society of Milwaukee for more than a decade, her online bio indicates. I wonder if Vong has run across this woman at some point. She received an award in 2012 from the Milwaukee Bar, recognizing her pro bono work, and is a past president of the legal group. In a 2016 interview with the Milwaukee Independent, Dugan said she loves the challenge of law to meet the promise of equal justice and its capacity to bring hope to the people. The rule of law and the precedential law is meant to provide consistency with predictably to create order and safety, she said, and yet the law also offers the capacity to transform people's lives and evolve into the changing times and circumstances. She says that while simultaneously putting her finger on the scale to favor one accused. Justice should be blind, which means that you don't go back and help somebody go back out and avoid his own day in court. She also noted the ability for some cases to become politicized in that interview. It is the role of the judge to be particularly cautious that such cases are handled according to the legal process and not be overwhelmed by political pressure, she said. There have been conflicting reports about what happened when ICE agents showed up in Dugan's courtroom on April 18th. So, and this is where I'm saying that this actually changes from time to time and I don't have a great handle on it. According to records, when authorities presented a warrant, Dugan asked for more information and told them they needed to speak to the chief judge before they could arrest Flores Ruiz there. Not true, by the way. The FBI's affidavit alleges the judge became visibly angry, commented that the situation was absurd, left the bench and entered the chambers. At the time, Ruiz was seated in the gallery of the courtroom. They claim a courtroom deputy witnessed Dugan telling Flores Ruiz and his attorneys to leave through a side door as the agents sought out the chief judge. The Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel reported that before Dugan's arrest, that sources told the newspaper the judge didn't hide Flores Ruiz. Rather, sources said when ICE officials left to talk to the chief judge on the same floor, Dugan took the pair to a side door in the courtroom, directed them down a private hallway into the public area of the 6th floor, the Journal-Sentinel reported. Dan O'Donnell first reported the FBI was investigating Dugan and alleged the judge allowed the defendant to hide in her jury room, which is normally off limits to everyone except the judge and members of the jury. That prompted a statement from the Republican state lawmaker Bob Donovan. In all my years of Milwaukee politics and public safety issues, working with cops, district attorneys, and judges, I've never seen such a more irresponsible act by an officer of the court, let alone a judge, if true. This borders on obstruction of justice. And I hope the FBI continues a thorough investigation and, if warranted, prosecution to the fullest extent of the law. Our laws are not suggestions. They must be upheld to maintain order in a functioning society, he continued. If Dugan is insisting on aiding and abetting a criminal, she should be disbarred for violating her sworn oath to uphold the law. Donovan responded to Dugan's arrest in a post on Friday on the social media platform X. By now, I'm sure she regrets her decision, but she can only blame herself for her alleged irresponsible actions that created this mess to begin with, he wrote. It sounds like she actually doesn't, so... From Fox News. Surprise, surprise. Milwaukee Judge Hannah Dugan adds former Bush Solicitor General to defense team. The Uniparty wins. From Michael Dorgan. Dugan, who was arrested and charged last week with hiding a previously deported illegal immigrant in her jury room in order to shield him from immigration officials, has tapped former Bush Solicitor General Paul Clement to represent her, according to Law.com. Because of course she did. Clement, an appellate legal heavyweight, served as Solicitor General from 2005 to 2009 and has argued more than 100 cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. He was on Trump's short list of Supreme Court nominees during his first term. I would criticize that at the time. And provided independent legal advice on the Justice Department's request to dismiss the corruption case against Eric Adams. Clement recommended that the case be dismissed with prejudice, meaning the charges could not be refiled. Clement joining Dugan's defense team is significant, given his conservative political background and long-standing career of arguing on behalf of conservative causes, which include opposing gun control and same-sex marriage, according to Law.com. He also litigated against the Obama admin, challenging the constitutionality of the Affordable Care Act. Yeah. This guy has done some good things, but again, the problem with Clement is, number one, he's a Bush appointee. That should automatically have him disbarred to begin with. But he's looking into this on support of the Uniparty rather than principle. It's all political at this point. It's political theater. Stuff we're going to find later on in this stream as well. Alright, what else do we have? The protests are here because, well, why wouldn't they be? Happening now. Hundreds of protesters have gathered outside a federal courthouse in downtown Milwaukee to support Judge Hannah Dugan. Why not? Why wouldn't they? I feel like Professor Farnsworth. Get a job!
Escucha, estamos en la lucha. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No due process, no peace. No due process,
really?
No peace. Escucha, estamos en la lucha.
No justice, no peace. Now, no due process, no peace. You guys, I make this criticism all the time. Usually it's, hey ho, people we don't like have got to go. That's usually what I criticize about this one, but no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace. You have the monopoly on artists and musicians and poets. You can't come up with new slogans? Really? From WSAW, Wisconsin Supreme Court suspends Milwaukee County judge. Let's listen.
Thank you, Mark. Some breaking news just into the newsroom now. The Wisconsin Supreme Court is suspending Milwaukee Judge Hannah Dugan. She's accused of helping a man evade immigration authorities 2 weeks ago. The FBI arrested Dugan at the courthouse last Friday and faces federal charges of concealing an individual and obstructing a proceeding. She was later released. The two-page order by the Supreme Court says it's in the public's interest to temporarily relieve her of her duties. We're learning.
That's not what I wanted. Why are we listening to this?
Thank you, Mark. Some breaking news just into the newsroom now. The Wisconsin Supreme Court is suspending Milwaukee Judge Hannah Dugan. She's accused of helping a man evade.
Okay, so apparently they only have 27 seconds of that. And now we have to go back and talk about transgender Utes. The Utes. All right, let's grab one with the Associated Press otherwise. Milwaukee judge charged with obstructing immigration agents is relieved of duty. From Tim Stello, this is over at NPC News. The Wisconsin judge accused of obstructing federal authorities who were seeking to detain an undocumented immigrant for deportation was temporarily relieved of her duties Tuesday, an order from the state's high court shows. Which she should. She did not treat justice as blind and put her finger on the scale for a defendant for political purposes. Yes, she should be out. Possibly permanently. The Wisconsin Supreme Court's order bars Milwaukee County Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan from her position while the federal charges are adjudicated. The court said it was acting on its own and not in response to a request from anyone. Said the court was intended to protect public confidence in Wisconsin courts. A criminal complaint shows Dugan was charged with obstructing and impeding a proceeding before any department or agency of the U.S., a felony, and concealing an individual to prevent his discovery and arrest, a misdemeanor. She could face a maximum prison sentence of 6 years. She will not see the inside of a jail cell, by the way. Yeah, the left can't meme, that's another thing that just confuses the crap out of me. Again. You have the monopoly on artists and painters and cartoonists. Why can't you meme? The FBI arrested Dugan, who was first elected to the circuit court. We know that in 2016 in the parking lot. Her attorneys declined to comment to NPC News on Tuesday, but her legal team told the Associated Press that it was disappointed the court acted in unilateral fashion. We continue to assert Judge Dugan's innocence and look forward to her vindication in court. Well, and that's part of the reason that this was suspended temporarily also, is so that you can have your day in court, and if you win, then, put her right back on the bench. I don't suspect that you will. A statement previously issued on her behalf said she would defend herself vigorously and looks forward to being exonerated. An affidavit in the case alleges that on April 18th, agents from the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement planned to detain a man who was said to appear in Dugan's courtroom in a domestic violence case. Eduardo. I guess I didn't realize it was domestic violence. I knew it was battery, but that's an interesting take. That's an interesting take, especially with the way that the propaganda has moved. Eduardo Flores Ruiz had previously been deported from the U.S., and an immigration official found probable cause to believe he could be removed from the country, according to an affidavit. Dugan and another unnamed judge are alleged to have confronted the agents in the hallway, asking whether they had a judicial warrant. and telling them to speak to the chief judge, according to the affidavit. After Dugan escorted Flores-Ruiz and his lawyer through a jury door, agents pursued them by foot and took Flores-Ruiz into custody, according to the affidavit. So, she is out for probably a few months while this all plays out in court. So this has been interesting, based on the fact that this story comes from nowhere near Milwaukee. Wisconsin judge threatens court boycott amid Milwaukee County judge arrest. This one I have not looked into at all, but I'm interested to learn what's happening with this. The arrest of Hannah Dugan could have sweeping impacts inside of a courtroom nearly 4.5 hours from Milwaukee. I think it was inappropriate, State Senator Romaine Quinn said. Sawyer County Judge Monica Isham sent an email to judges across the state threatening to not show up to court until there is a guidance on how to handle incidents with ICE agents. There's a guidance on how to handle incidents with ICE agents. You do your job, you try the cases that are in front of you, and then you allow the court above you to do the same. WISN 12 News has been working to obtain the email in its entirety. What does that say to the victims that are awaiting for justice? Quinn asked. In Milwaukee County, Chief Judge Carl Ashley has been working with another county official on a policy to handle future cases where ICE agents attempt to arrest someone in court. Isham was in court on Monday and has a full load of cases set for Tuesday. Quinn called on her to resign on Monday if she follows through with her threat. I mean, realistically, if she's refusing to participate, letting the docket pile up and everything, I would almost consider that to be a de facto resignation. Maybe not completely directly, but de facto. We've never had a scenario where someone would willfully just not hold court intentionally and just not do their job. So at the end of the day, the lower judges have to respond to higher ups, the chief judge, and then I think the Supreme Court ultimately would arbitrate that kind of issue, Quinn said. See, the issue that I have with this, I mean, protest your heart's content. But just like you said earlier, and this goes directly to you, Judge Isham, it's just like you said directly above that, there are victims of crimes that are waiting for justice. And for your political pet project, you're denying them the way that you accuse the ICE agents of denying justice for the immigrants that they're coming to arrest in the courtrooms. So you're kind of sitting in a catch-22 on this one. A cupcake behind him. Is there a cupcake behind him? There is a cupcake back there. I didn't even see that. So we've got a little bit of contradicting talk about Evers as well here from, starting with WPR. Evers admin memo urges employees to use caution if ICE shows up at a state agency. From Sarah Lair. Tony Evers admin is warning state workers to be cautious if ICE shows up at their workplace. Wisconsin Department of Admin sent a memo last week to staff at cabinet agencies. The DOA is not aware of any recent instances of ICE showing up at state agencies or offices, the DOA spokesperson Tatiana Warwick said. The guidance was developed in response to agency staff who have asked about what to do should such a situation arise, Warwick wrote in an email to WPR. The memo instructs staff to first ask for a name and badge if an agent from ICE or another federal agency shows up or requests information, which you should be doing no matter what. I don't care if it's the local yokel city cop or the director of the FBI himself. If a cop shows up at your door, state agency, workplace, name and badge first, dude. And then a warrant. It says if staff should not answer questions or provide files or computer system access without first talking to their agency's legal counsel. Also correct. And it warns against letting an agent into non-public areas of the building that could include spaces other than the lobby, restrooms, or elevators. Now, see, that in and of itself is the idea of a non-public area of a government building. And then now, who arbitrates what's a public and a non-public area? Especially when it comes with law enforcement. Those steps should be taken even if the agent provides a warrant DOA has advised. Now see, that in and of itself is also incorrect. The agent must have a judicial warrant to go beyond publicly accessible areas of the building. The memo says, your attorney will advise you on what areas are covered by the warrant. That's true. So we're in a little bit of a mismatch of what's in federal law on this one. Some of this is accurate by federal law, some of this is not, and some of this is accurate by state law, and some of this is not. Wisconsin Republicans have blasted the memo and accused Evers of ordering public employees to obstruct ICE. The very fact that Evers is instructing his employees to either break the federal law or not cooperate with law enforcement is a new low for Evers, Robin Voss of Rochester said during a news conference. Now he's telling every single state employee to ignore a warrant. It's really embarrassing. Yeah, see, Voss, again, very rarely correct. Was it correct on this one? No, you can't ignore a warrant like that. That is against the law, and that is obstruction of justice. But Tim Muth, the senior attorney with the ACLU, disputed that characterization. This is a pretty plain vanilla document that's consistent with the Fourth Amendment. Not true. Muth said in an interview with WPR, I don't see this as doing anything more than asking state officials to be respecting the privacy of persons who are involved with that particular agency. So, about half and half of this is in line with the Fourth Amendment. But now Evers is coming back out and trying to defend himself as well. Evers says he's not encouraging state employees to break the law in a new ICE directive. What the article is leaving out is the DOA, the Department of Admin document, instructs state employees to tell ICE agents to go away and come back another time if the department's counsel isn't available. That is actually an accurate thing that can be done. The issue with that, of course, is you can't hide behind the fact of, okay, now you send your counsel to Mexico, so he's not available for the next 6-8 months. Evers says his admin is not directing state employees to break federal law and new directives issued if federal immigration officials were to enter any state buildings. I just think if they come in, ICE comes in and wants to talk to somebody, I think an attorney should be there. Well, yes, you don't answer questions to a government agency, even if you are a government agency, without an attorney. But they still have their search warrant that they can come and search the premises. I don't think we're going to stop ICE from doing whatever they're going to do. Absolutely not. But we want to make it fair for the people that are employees. I think it's important that they have access to an attorney just for that exchange between ICE and one of our employees. The guidance recently issued by the Department of Admin directs state employees not to answer questions or provide documents to ICE without calling an attorney. Republicans are accusing the governor of instructing state employees to break federal law. So, again, we're on the half and half mark here for that one. All right, more on the immigration front. Almost done with that one, I promise. A U.S. judge bars Border Patrol from some warrantless arrest of suspected undocumented residents. From Rebecca Boone. A federal judge in California has barred Border Patrol agents from arresting someone suspected of living in the U.S. illegally, unless they have a warrant or a reason to believe the person might flee before a warrant can be obtained. There's reason to believe that a person who knows that you're going to get a warrant to deport that person might flee before a warrant can be obtained. But still, and this is part of where I draw some ire with the Trump administration. You should have a warrant before you go to arrest anybody, undocumented or not, because, well, then a judge has gone over the documents and confirmed, yes, this person is indeed undocumented. There's no way that this can come back and get challenged in a federal court or a Supreme Court because we have all of our ducks in a row and we know that this person should not be here. Yes, you should have a warrant. We're not just going out and scooping up every Hernandez in the country. Thursday's ruling from U.S. District Judge Jennifer L. Thurston also says Border Patrol agents can't stop people without having a reasonable suspicion or return them to their countries of origin by a voluntary departure unless the person is informed of their rights and agrees to leave. The ruling only applies to people within the court's Eastern District of California. Thurston said dozens of people were swept up in January after the Border Patrol launched an immigration enforcement action dubbed Operation Return to Sender. The ACLU sued the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and U.S. Border Patrol officials on behalf of the labor union United Farm Workers and people who were targeted during the Border Patrol raids. The ACLU said Border Patrol agents spent nearly a week unconstitutionally detaining people who appeared to be farm workers or day laborers, regardless of their actual immigration status or individual circumstances. The detainees were bused to the border, held without any way to contact family or attorneys, and coerced into signing papers that said that they'd waived their rights to see an immigration judge and voluntarily agreed to leave the country, the ACLU says. Well, my question would be, what is the probable cause? Again, we're not going out and just scooping up every Hernandez sitting on the street. The evidence before the court is that Border Patrol agents under DHS authority engaged in conduct that violated well-established constitutional rights, Thurston wrote. She said the Border Patrol would have to provide a report showing exactly who is detained or arrested without warrants and why every 60 days until the lawsuit is concluded. Attorneys for the Border Patrol had argued that judge lacked jurisdiction to consider the case because federal law says immigration matters can be generally only appealed once an immigration judge has issued a final order. Besides, the government's attorneys said the lawsuit is moot because the Border Patrol has already issued new guidance and training to its agents detailing exactly when people may be stopped or arrested without warrants and what rights detainees have after the arrest. But Thurston said Border Patrol can't claim the lawsuit is moot simply because it issued a new policy after it was sued. Fair. The language in the new policy isn't strong enough to guard against illegal stops, Thurston said, and there's no reason to believe the policy wouldn't be changed in the future. It's an interesting conundrum for sure, and it's part of the reason that I'm glad that the Wisconsin law got turned around, where, and this doesn't have to do with immigration, but it's the same kind of concept. And same thing where I go, like, we're not going and stopping every brown person driving down the street and saying, hey, do you got your papers here? But it's like, there was a seatbelt law. There is a seatbelt law in Wisconsin. You get a $10 fine if you get stopped and you don't have your seatbelt on. But there was a while the Wisconsin court system allowed the police to stop you simply just for not wearing a seatbelt and no other reason, which was basically an excuse to come in and search your vehicle without the Fourth Amendment involved. And that got overturned for very good reason, because, now you've got to have some sort of reasonable suspicion. You were speeding, your license plate's expired, something else like that, but they're not just stopping you because they arbitrarily didn't see your seatbelt on in a way that's really impossible to come back out and prove in court. Alright, a news story that's popped up all over the place, but again, admittedly, I have not looked into myself. Deported Cuban mother separated from breastfeeding 1-year-old daughter, from Mario Fuentes and David Sherwood. Cuban mother Heidi Sanchez collapsed into tears when she recalled the moment last week, when immigration officials in Florida told her she would be deported and separated from her still breastfeeding 1-year-old daughter. They told me to call my husband, that her daughter had to stay, and that I would go, she told Reuters in an interview at a family member's home near the Cuban capital, Havana. My daughter got nervous and agitated and began to ask for milk, but it didn't matter then. The Department of Homeland Security told Reuters that Sanchez's statement was inaccurate and contradicted standard immigration and customs enforcement protocol. Okay, you have my attention. Parents are asked if they want to be removed with their children, or ICE will place the children with someone the parent designates. Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said in an emailed response late on Monday. In this case, the parents stated they wanted to be removed without the child and left the child in the care of a safe relative in the United States. DHS did not immediately respond to a Reuters request for evidence that Sanchez had been offered the choice to take her child with her to Cuba. Which, realistically, I guess I don't understand why you wouldn't have. I know that Cuba is typically a dangerous place, and the child is a U.S. citizen. I'm curious, because they said husband, too. So I'm curious as well as to why husband wasn't deported, or if husband is U.S. citizen, why there isn't a green card involved. Because, and I know it's an old sitcom trope still, but isn't one of the perks of marrying a U.S. citizen is that you get to, if not become a U.S. citizen, at least have expedited process while they go through your case, or protection otherwise. And I admit I don't know that much about that part of the immigration law. But I feel like there's some oversight somewhere in this case, just based on the first couple paragraphs of the Reuters article. Sanchez said she arrived in her home country hours after being detained with no passport or ID, no documentation from the U.S. explaining the reason for her deportation. The contradictions in Sanchez's case highlight concerns among civil rights advocates, over the due process rights of immigrants during U.S. President Trump's immigration crackdown, a key platform of his 2024 election campaign. Trump's admin on Monday touted the early results of the aggressive enforcement measures, holding a drop in illegal border crossings. Democrats and civil rights advocates, however, criticized the admin's tactics, including the cases of several U.S. citizen children recently deported with their parents. One of the children had a rare form of cancer, according to the ACLU. Unlike those cases, Sanchez, who was surprised at a routine check-in at an ICE office in Tampa last Thursday, said she was given no choice but to leave behind her daughter, a U.S. citizen. So we've got two very contradicting stories here. And I don't know where to believe of this one, honestly. I have a hard time understanding a mother who would just come back and leave her child behind. As far as ICE goes, you guys know my stance on trusting the government. You know, I recently make fun of the idea of we investigated ourselves and found we did nothing wrong. So I'm just with the information that's here. I'm a little bit torn on this. And okay, husband is not a citizen. No, her husband is a citizen. She said officials separated her from her child, escorted her to a van, handcuffed her, and later that day deported her by air to Cuba alongside 81 others. Sanchez, 44, had been under deportation order since 19, but was allowed to temporarily live and work as long as she regularly checked in with ICE. During that time, she married a Cuban-born naturalized U.S. citizen and had her first child in November of 23. And see, again, it's the marriage part that's confusing me, because to my understanding, that at least gets you in the pathway to green card, if not citizenship, by being married to a U.S. citizen. And this guy is naturalized. He went through the process. Her husband sought legal residence in the U.S. for Sanchez 2 years ago as a result of their marriage, but had yet to receive a response. So, very contradicting two sets of articles from, well, realistically, two sources that are hard to trust. Let's see. My understanding is even with a marriage, they can hold up the immigration process. Her brother had a long hold from his wife and his first child born overseas due to the delay. If he could have married her and expedited it, I believe that he would have. I believe they were separated by the process for a year. Baby was a solid 8 months old when they were finally able to come stateside. I don't think that's the case. Similar to a traffic stop where, while trying to someone giving a speeding ticket, the officer notices a strong odor of cannabinoids at the top of a plastic baggie poking up from the cup holder. The cop has probable cause to search the car, and he finds cannabinoids therein and has full authority to arrest the driver. But with the immigration is that there could be missing documents, absolutely. So this one here specifically, I want to continue to watch, because I don't know where to go on this one. I mean, I hate to attribute malice to a mother, but I'm going to come right out and say, did she refuse to take her daughter with her just so they could have the protest point? I don't know. I don't want to believe a mother could do that, but we are not living in normal times right now either, so. There are a lot of things that I've seen doing contemporary in the last 4 years that I never thought that I would see in the news in my life. And yet here we are. Alright, we gotta move on. We'll come off immigration. Let's talk a bit about the tariffs. It's an interesting case with this one. We'll read from the Associated Press to talk about what's going on with this. Amazon is not planning to break out tariff costs online as White House attacks potential move. I'm very confused by this because the position the White House is holding, they shouldn't be attacking the move for the tariffs and the tariff breakout costs. In fact, they should be encouraging it. I'm encouraging it. Hell, I want Bezos to go back on the agreement he just made with Trump. From Wyatt Grantham, Phillips, and Josh Boak. Amazon says it's not planning to display added tariff costs next to product prices on its site, despite a report that sparked speculation from the e-commerce giant that would soon show a new import charges and the White House's fiery comments denouncing the purported change. The Trump admin's reaction appeared to be based on a misinterpretation of the internal plans being considered by Amazon, rather than a final decision made by the company. Well, I mean, I canceled my PayPal based on an internal communication. The fact that they decided not to do it after public backlash, which again was stupid. You shouldn't be publicly backlashing on this one. Doesn't mean that we're not going to sit back and wait for you to change your mind years later. And even those talks were limited, only Amazon's haul service, its recently launched low-cost storefront, considered the idea of listing import charges on certain products. Company spokesperson Tim Doyle said in a statement sent to the Associated Press. But this was never approved and is not going to happen. Earlier Tuesday, Punchbowl News had reported that Amazon planned to start showing how much each product's cost, derived from tariffs, right next to its total listed price, citing an anonymous source familiar with the matter. The Trump admin was quick to criticize news of the potential move. At a briefing with reporters earlier in the day, White House Press Secretary Bubbleheaded Bleach Blonde accused Amazon of taking a hostile and political act, and further attacked the company by suggesting it had partnered with the Chinese propaganda arm. A source familiar with the matter spoke the condition of anonymity. Anonymous sources. It's Mogwai's cat, not Decca's cat. Told the Associated Press, the president also called Amazon founder Bezos to complain about the reported plans Tuesday morning. The admin seemed to change its tune following Amazon's clarifying statement. Jeff Bezos was very nice. He was terrific, Trump told reporters before leaving the White House for Michigan on Tuesday afternoon. He solved the problem very quickly and did the right thing. He's a good guy. He's a good guy. The greatest guy. Bezos was one of a handful of powerful, ultra-wealthy tech titans who attended Trump's inauguration in January, filling some of the most exclusive seats right behind the president. But Trump's relationship with much of the corporate world has been tested since then, as the tariff wars he's launched with nearly all of America's trading partners continue to plunge companies into uncertainty. So, and yes, he appears to have come back out and backed down off of this. But other companies like Tencent, which is Chinese, so, I mean, they're doing this based on self-interest. They're putting it on the receipt. One of the paid shills, Rachel Bittekofer, I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Somebody I don't follow, but it still continues to show up on my feed. Subtotal 2218. Items total 8387. Items discount 6169. Subtotal 2218. Shipping is free. Sales tax is 113. Import charges, tariffs 3144. Another one here. This is just lack of self-awareness because, I mean, most of us can't afford a $628 jacket and a $91 shirt. But they're doing the same thing, $90.99 with a tariff charge of $154.68. I don't know what you are buying as a shirt from China that costs $90, because that's the only country that has a over 100% tariff rate on it, with a total of $276.39. But let's talk about this for just a second. Now, again, the phone call to Bezos, if your actual intent is to bring manufacturing to the U.S., should have never happened. The page shields were all running around coming out and saying, "Could somebody please explain to me, a Trump supporter explain to me why it's bad that we have the tariff charges on there if the tariffs are so good?" And I said, well, I'm not a Trump supporter, first off, so maybe I'm not qualified to answer this question, but they should be on there. We should be able to look at the country or manufacturer and say, hey, I know this comes from a liberal mindset and a union worker mindset, but yeah, we should be striving more to buy made in the U.S. stuff, to put more American workers to work. That used to be the left-wing position when I was a kid, because the meat and potatoes of the Democratic base was the labor union. When I was a kid, they were very protectionist at the time. But furthermore, going back to this, if you want to encourage American manufacturing to come back and use your tariffs to do so, then yes, we should be looking and seeing exactly what the cost increase is that they're passing along. And no, these companies are not going to they're not going to absorb the cost of the tariffs. By doing so, they're going to pass that right along to the consumer. The same thing they do with corporate taxes, except our friends on the left seem to think that corporate taxes are a godsend from God. And just out of the goodness of their hearts, the corporate billionaires that they hate are just going to absorb that cost of the corporate taxes. They're not going to pass that along, but they'll certainly pass along Trump's evil tariffs. But yes, I want to know exactly how much extra that's costing me so I can go back out and find I want you to put it right next to the price on the front page of Amazon so I can say, hey, that's tariffed. I don't want that. That comes from China. That's going to be crap. This one has no tariff. This is made in the U.S. I want to buy that one. Put it on there. Put it on the receipt. Put it in bright red letters next to the price on Amazon. Now, of course, one of the issues that I have with this, even though Amazon it's a huge company, so they've got the accountants and they've got the bean counters who can come out here and take out the duty cost down to the thousandths of a penny at the end of it. They can go back and calculate that out per item off of this. Is realistically, the tariffs are going off on a major shipment of this, not just every individual piece. But furthermore, without a calculator, I mean, what person's going to sit down and look at this and say, okay, so this is what the duty cost was, and it was on the cost, not on the sale price. Hey, now I can see what the cost was by multiplying by 245%. And now I can see exactly what you're overcharging me. So the mathematicians among us can go back and see what the profit margin is that Amazon is going with, number one. But number two, I mean, how do we otherwise know that this is accurate at all? Or this possibly is just a way for Amazon to collect another fee and put it in their pocket. All right, let's keep going. I've ranted about that one enough. SN Views with a little bit of propaganda. This is, of course, from an anonymous source again. So this is supposed to be a conversation between a staffer named Moran and Donald Trump. Moran saying, so 145% tariffs on China, and that's basically an embargo. That's good, Trump replied. They deserve it. It will raise prices on everything from electronics to clothing to building houses, Moran said. You don't know that. You don't know whether or not China's going to eat it. That's mathematics, Moran said. China they'll probably eat those tariffs. They're ripping us off like no one's ever ripped us off. They're not doing that anymore. And no, they're not absorbing that cost. They shouldn't. Like I said from the beginning, if you want to get more manufacturing invested in the US, yes, it's going to be painful for a little while. It's unfortunate. It sucks. But if it doesn't get painful, everyone just says, oh, well, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll invest in an American company tomorrow. No, it's fine. But I don't believe for a second that this conversation happened. It's like the throwing the ketchup on the wall thing. Nobody saw it, nobody has video of it. But the paid chills on X can swear up and down that it actually happened. In the midst of all of this, we have some articles of impeachment. A relatively unknown congressman, Sri Thanader, with a video explaining that he has introduced the articles of impeachment against Trump. Let's listen. I'm going to get some information on him while we're listening to this too.
This is Congressman Sri Thanedar. Donald Trump has already done real damage to our democracy, but defying a unanimous 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, that has to be the final straw. It's time we impeach Donald J. Trump. The court said the wrongfully deported Kilmer Garcia must be allowed to return and receive due process. Trump ignored it. He ignored the Constitution. He ignored the very checks and balances that keep our democracy intact. This isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a dangerous, deliberate pattern. That's why today I introduced a resolution to impeach Donald J. Trump, outlining 7 articles of impeachment. Article 1, obstruction of justice and abuse of executive power. From denying due process to unlawful deportations, Trump defied court orders. Article 2, taking away Congress's power of the purse. Trump dismantled agencies and froze funds without permission from Congress. Article 3, abuse of trade powers and international aggression. He imposed damaging tariffs and threatened military invasions of our allies. Article 4, violation of First Amendment rights. He has retaliated against journalists, attorneys, and critics for exercising their right to free speech. Article 5, creation of an unlawful office establishing the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and giving Elon Musk unconstitutional power over our government and personal data. Article 6, bribery and corruption. He has dismissed criminal cases and solicited payments from foreign governments and coerced legal settlements for personal and political gain. Article 7, tyrannical overreach. Finally, and most importantly, he is attempting to consolidate unchecked power and erode the constitutional limits of the presidency. In this country, we have presidents, not kings. That's not just misconduct, it's impeachable misconduct. This isn't leadership, it's tyranny. If we let this stand, We are saying the president is above the law, that the United States Constitution is optional. I won't be silent, and I'm calling on all my colleagues, Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, to stand up with me. Enough is enough. Donald J. Trump must be impeached.
Now, this is all complete political theater at this point. None of this has any basis in reality, number one. And, I mean, you can impeach a ham sandwich if it were to get elected to office, because it's a political process at this point. But it's all grandstanding. You don't have the votes in Congress to make this happen, and you don't have the votes in Senate to come back out and push the conviction of this. As far as the actual articles go with this, to look at the conduct over the past year, and I've had disagreements with the Trump admin going all the way back to its first term, but to listen to the list of articles that Sri Thanedar, who is a congressman from Michigan's 13th district, have listed are on the most generous interpretations of the laws that he cited. And yeah, you don't even have to have a law at this point to impeach. There doesn't have to be a statutory violation. You just come back out and have the votes and say, I don't like this person, so here's what he did that I don't like, and let's go back and impeach him over this. But this is going nowhere. However, that doesn't change the fact that Ossoff is also getting in on this one. Let's read a little bit about Thanedar's introduction of the articles. We'll read a little bit about Ossoff getting in on this. And Chuck Schumer is actually coming back and saying, no, let's not do this. Let's not do this. All right, let's put some music back up. Let's grab one from Axios. House Democrat unveils articles of impeachment against Trump, from Andrew Solendar. Sri Thanedar of Michigan on Monday introduced 7 long-shot articles of impeachment against Trump. It's the first time this year, and not the last time, a House Democrat has tried to impeach the president or a member of the admin, though it will almost certainly not be the last. Al Green, who was censured last month for disrupting Trump's speech to a joint session of Congress, has said he is planning on articles as well. Ilhan Omar has also privately floated the impeaching Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard over Signalgate, a made-up crime that didn't actually happen. It is, a friend of mine pointed this out years ago, and I didn't think too much about it. He was pointing this out. He was a native-born masshole. When we were talking about Deflategate and Tom Brady's deflated footballs at the time, and he said, this was back on the Boomer book, back when I used this, that's how long ago this was, says, can we stop the practice of adding gate to the end of every scandal? And I replied back, I said, that in and of itself is a scandal in itself. It's Gate. All right. Thanedar, who garnered a second primary challenger on Monday morning, said in a statement that Trump is unfit to serve as president and represents a clear and present danger to our nation's constitution and democracy. So it kind of sounds like he's going to be out no matter what anyway. So he's throwing a long shot to go in a blaze of glory, or more likely at this point, he's looking for a way to get his name up in the news so he can get national support, because he seems to be losing it locally. His articles accuse Trump of obstruction of justice, abuse of power, usurpation of power, bribery, and corruption, mostly related to the president's consolidation of power and personal finances, which I still don't understand. You people don't understand how a dictator and a dictatorship works. You don't get to dictatorship by getting rid of all of your employees and shrinking your department or your branch of government. Typically, you go on a hiring spree and you expand your branch of government if you want to be a dictator, because yeah, it's cool that you want to be the king over everybody, but you can't be in 330 million houses at the same time by yourself. You need brown shirts for that. You need to go on a hiring spree for the executive branch. Biden. His measures are almost certainly not going anywhere, especially with the Republicans in control of both the House and Senate. Thenador could in theory force a vote on impeachment, but has not said if he will do so. Hakeem Jeffries said at a press conference Monday, "I haven't evaluated the articles. I haven't had an opportunity to talk with him about it." So, there they are. Who is Sri Thanadar? Well, nobody knew before 2 days ago. From Sarah Fortinsky over at The Hill. Sri Thanadar announced Monday he filed 7 articles of impeachment against the president. Thanadar also cites Trump's deep tariff agenda. Yep, we know that. The impeachment articles are all but certain to die in Congress since Republicans control both the House and Senate, but Thanadar's announcement Monday signals an effort to boost his own national profile and position himself as a clear opponent to the president and his agenda, i.e. his poll numbers were failing, so he's trying to get them back up. He's a chemist, a business owner, served in Michigan State House before he was elected to Congress in 2022 and re-elected last fall. He also mounted an unsuccessful campaign for the governor in 2018. Thanadar has been a target for progressives since he distanced himself from the wing of the party after the October 7th, 2023 attack on Israel. A former member of the Democratic Socialists of America, Thanadar renounced. Hold on. Everything shifted. Renounced his membership after the group issued a statement expressing solidarity with the Palestinian people, but failed to condemn Hamas or the attack itself. Thanadar also faces 2 primary challengers in the 26 election cycle. On Monday morning, State Rep Donovan McKinney announced he was launching a left-wing primary challenge to Thanadar, blasting him as an out-of-touch multimillionaire who represents the poorest districts in the country. "People like our Congressman Sri Thanadar are the problem," McKinney said, a multimillionaire who spent millions to buy a seat in Congress, who has more in common with Trump and Musk than people like us. See, if you're going to be in the DSA and rich, then you need to make sure that you stay in lockstep with them for the end of time. There's no room for dissent, because that's the first thing they're going to pull out with you is, "You're just like Donald Trump." Thanadar told The Hill in a statement on Monday he's proud voters in Michigan's 13th voted for him in 22 and 24. Former State Senator Adam Hollier, who launched a primary challenge against Thanadar in 24 but did not qualify to appear on the ballot, announced earlier this month he would also challenge the incumbent. So we've got some fireworks in what is normally a safe blue district. On the Ossoff news, Senator joins a group of far-left lawmakers who think Trump has again committed impeachable offenses. Now, to these people, Trump being born is an impeachable offense, so... From Alex Schimmel, Charles Kreitz. Jon Ossoff, soon to be former senator of Georgia, has become the latest Democrat in Congress to signal that President Trump deserves to be impeached, even though he's only been in the White House this term for less than 100 days. During a town hall in Cobb County, Ossoff took questions from the audience, including from a fired-up local mother who questioned Ossoff of why there hasn't been a more concerted effort to impeach Trump. It's easy. They don't have the votes. Why are there no calls for impeachment? Do something more. Ossoff told the woman at the top of his response, there's no doubt Trump has exceeded the standard for impeachment. I just saw 48 hours ago Trump is granting an audience to people who buy his meme coin. There's no question that rises to the level of an impeachable offense. And the reality is that that's just one of the many examples, defying a federal court order, for example, so I agree with you. Ossoff's remarks make him the latest Democrat lawmaker in Congress who's either explicitly called for Trump's impeachment or signaled willingness to support such a move just 100 days into his presidency. I don't think that's the case. I think it was that he got challenged by a far-left progressive at a town hall and just said whatever it was going to take to make her happy. I don't think that this was a call for the impeachment itself or a willingness to do so. This was I'm up for re-election in a highly contested statewide seat in a very red state. Vote for me. While most Democrats have been willing to publicly admit the country is facing a constitutional crisis under Trump, most of them have refrained from going so far as to use the I word. Some, though, such as Al Green, have not shied away from supporting calls for impeachment. That's because he got slapped down in Congress. He was the first congressional lawmaker to call for it just weeks into the president's second term. Green's calls have been supported by other Democrats such as Suzanne Bonamici and Maxine Dexter of Oregon, Sam Liccardo and Maxine Waters of California, Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, Sri Thander of Michigan, and Hank Johnson of Georgia, all of whom have gone publicly on the record regarding their support, according to NBC News. Right now it's 2:18 to 2:15, so if you can find me 2 Republicans, I'll go to work tomorrow, said Jamie Raskin of Maryland, who led impeachment efforts against Trump during his first term, when asked about the matter. So they're starting to do so. They might not do as well, though, from Newsweek. Trump impeachment efforts faces resistance from House Democrats. From Andrew Stanton. An attempt by Rep. Thanedar to impeach Trump is facing resistance from the congressman's party. Pete Aguilar, a California Democrat who serves as chair of the House Democratic Caucus, told reporters Tuesday Democrats aren't eyeing impeachment against Trump at this point, just one day after Thanedar introduced his articles of impeachment. Impeachment is at times a tool that can be used. The president is no stranger to that. He's been impeached twice, but we don't have any confidence the House and Senate Republicans would do their jobs. And so this is not an exercise we're willing to undertake. I still kind of want to see it. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, 3 House Democrats, Robin Kelly of Illinois, Kwesi Mufimi of Maryland, and Gerald Nadler of New York, withdrew their supports from the impeachment articles reported to The Hill. Kelly and Mufune did so after learning the articles had not been reviewed by party leadership, the publication reported. Only one Democrat, Rep. Jan Schakowsky of Illinois, remained a co-sponsor of the articles of impeachment as of Wednesday afternoon. In a statement to Newsweek, Thanedar said he cannot speak on the actions of other members. I think they're starting to realize that it's political grandstanding, and I mean, it's especially there. There's no chance of coming out and winning. Thanedar's using this to try to out-left his primary challengers. Is all that I'm seeing off of this. And dare I say, in as partisan of an environment as it is, and as a football team mentality of an environment as we're in right now, I think some of the Democrats are starting to come back out and realize the fact that if they just impeach over and over again, it does lose some of its meaning. Just like banding around the famous R word everywhere. If everybody's racist, then nobody's racist. If everybody's a Nazi, then nobody's a Nazi. These words have lost power at this point. Power they shouldn't have had to begin with, but just because they've been overused to the level that they've been overused. Alright. Schumer batting down the impeachment. And this is basically the leader of the Democrat Party at this point. Schumer bats down impeachment talk. Too far away to even judge. Let's listen.
Your colleague from Georgia, Senator Jon Ossoff, told voters at a town hall that he strongly agrees that President Trump should be impeached. Do you agree with him? Would that be a priority if Democrats were to take back Congress?
Well, look, right now, President Trump is violating rule of law in every way. And we're fighting him every single day in every way. And our goal is to show the American people over and over again, whether it's the economy, whether it's tariffs, whether it's Russia and overseas, and whether it's rule of law, how bad he is. And, it's 2 years is too far away to predict. Our job is day to day to day to show who Trump is, what he is doing, and it's having an effect, as your polls show. The American people are realizing.
You're not saying no.
Look, it's too far away to even judge.
Okay.
We're looking at the president's polling that's underwater, but Senator, it's not exactly great.
So, I think they're just waiting to see if they can manage to grab the Congress next term. Alright, we gotta revisit an old news story. The Black Hawk helicopter. Because we've had new developments at this point. From Fox News, Black Hawk pilot failed to heed flight instructor in moments before plane collision over D.C., per report from Anders Hagstrom. The pilot of the military Black Hawk helicopter that collided with a passenger airplane over D.C. in January ignored instructions to change course seconds before the crash, according to a new report. The report published by the New York Times on Sunday detailed the Black Hawk's exchanges with air traffic controllers in the lead up to the disaster, which left 67 people dead. According to the report, the Black Hawk pilot, Captain Rebecca Loback, was conducting her annual flight evaluation, and her co-pilot, Chief Warrant Officer 2, Andrew Lloyd Eves, was serving as her flight instructor. When air traffic controllers informed the Black Hawk that there was an airliner nearby, Loback and Eves acknowledged the message and requested to fly by visual separation, a common practice that allows aircraft to avoid collisions based on their own observations, rather than following instructions from air traffic control. The Black Hawk was 15 seconds away from crossing paths with a jet. Warrant Officer Eves then turned to his attention to Captain Loback. He told her he believed that air traffic control wanted them to turn left towards the East River Bank, the Times wrote. Turning left would have opened up more space between the helicopter and Flight 5342, which was headed for runway 33 at an altitude of roughly 300 feet. She did not turn left, the report said. Loback of Durham also served as an aviation officer in the Army beginning in July of 2019 and had around 500 hours of flying time in the Black Hawk, the Army said at release. Loback was assigned to the 12th Aviation Battalion in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Her awards include the Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal, National Defense Service Medal, and Army Service Ribbon, according to the Army. She was also a White House military social aide in the Biden admin. The crash instantly caused national scrutiny on air traffic control policies, with Transportation Secretary Duffy opening an investigation. Duffy announced plans in March to bolster air traffic control systems with the latest technology over the next 4 years, while also using AI to identify hotspots where close encounters between aircraft occur frequently. There have been 85 near misses or close calls at Reagan, according to a report from National Travel Safety Board, NTSB. Close calls were identified as incidences where there are less than 200 feet of vertical separation and 1,500 feet of lateral separation between aircraft. We're having near misses, and if we don't change our way, we're going to lose lives, Duffy told reporters at the time. That wasn't done. Maybe there was a focus on something other than safety, but in this admin, we're focusing on safety. Now, the big one for this, and Fox News kind of glossed over it, was pointed out by Alex Berenson. The New York Times story on the DC plane crash hides its takeaway until the last sentence. The lady helicopter pilot ignored multiple warnings from her right seat about altitude and his directly telling her to turn away and flew straight into a passenger jet. The end. With screenshots, and I have the article archived in the next tab. Missteps, equipment problems, and a common but risky practice led to a fatal crash. New details released by the Times show the complex failures on January 29th before an Army helicopter crashed into a jet near Washington's Reagan International. With the last sentence, turning left would have opened up more space between the helicopter and Flight 5342, which was headed for runway 33 at an altitude of roughly 300 feet. She did not turn left. The issue with this, with everybody passing away on this, and yes, we can come back to the New York Times as well and read this. I will put this archived in the Discord, is that this is an extremely lengthy novel of an article. Like, I've been sitting here scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. This is a lot. And then at the very, very end, the last sentence, she was told to turn left by the instructor who was certifying her for flight, and she didn't turn left. At the end of this very long article, kind of suggests to me that the Times didn't want people to come back out and read this. So let me drop this in the Discord for you guys. Put this over here. Why do I have pings? I have a lot of pings. I don't know why. Oh, there's the other one. Alright, anyway. Articles. There you go, the New York Times. It's a tragedy, regardless, that people lost their lives over something like this. I know I'm not going to put this on to the culture war. If you want to see this put through the culture war, the weekly notice is going to be starting up pretty soon. Steven will go over that part of that. I don't know what was in Captain Lobach's head at the time. I'm not going to attribute it to a woman moment or anything else like that. I just know that it sucks that people died. Alright, from WDRB. 2 weeks before Real ID deadline, 28 Kentucky lawmakers asked for another delay, including, of course, Thomas Massey. From Angelica Robinson. The federal Real ID deadline is 2 weeks away, with less than 40% of Kentuckians eligible for driver's license compliant. 28 state senators are asking for the federal government to again delay the move. Currently, just 36.3% of Kentuckians eligible for a driver's license have a Real ID, the state says. Jimmy Higdon of Lebanon, chair of the Kentucky Senate Transportation Committee, joined 27 other state senators this week, calling for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to delay the May 7th deadline. The letter, dated April 17th, says Kentucky isn't fully prepared. If the Real ID requirements moves forward a schedule, it will further strain an already overburdened regional office and create unnecessary hardship particularly for seniors, rural residents, and working families who struggle to access necessary documents or transportation, the letter says. Some measures were passed in the last legislative session, but this will not be implemented before May 7th. The state senators asked Nome for another reasonable extension to ensure a smooth rollout. In Louisville, lines are growing as people rush to get their real IDs. A quick search Wednesday of upcoming appointments at local branches showed no openings. So, I still don't agree with the requirement of real ID. I think that if you want it, you should be able to get it. Put out additional documents, but having restrictions from the federal government to force that? Well, I'm against force from the federal government to begin with, so. With Thomas Massey also joining the fray. Less than 37% of Kentuckians have a real ID, yet Nome says she's going to go live with this Orwellian system at airports on May 7th. Might want to rethink this. I think if air traffic drops, then the lobbyists and the air traffic control are going to push the issue and force. Alright, Santos has gone to prison. Ex-GOP Congressman George Santos sentenced to 87 months in prison in federal fraud case. From Haley Chai Singh and Kitty LeClaire. Former Rep. George Santos was sentenced to 87 months in federal court in connection with his wire fraud and identity theft case. In connection with his case that involved him being a Republican in an easily snipeable New York district. The 36-year-old former rep served in Congress for close to a year before being ousted in 23 by his House colleagues. Santos has not yet been convicted of a crime at that point, but had been indicted on 23 counts related to wire fraud, identity theft, falsification of records, credit card fraud, and other charges. Santos sobbed as he received his sentence, according to the Associated Press. District Court Judge Joanna Sabert asked Santos during his sentencing, "Where's your remorse? Where do I see it?" She continued on to say that he appeared to feel that it's always someone else's fault, according to the outlet. Santos is expected to arrive in prison by July 26th, a source confirmed to Fox News. A little surprised by this one, honestly. I didn't think that he was going to go to jail. I thought they were going to get him out of office and then forget about him. But he is gone. Alright, from the New York Times. Virginia Giuffre, voice in Epstein's sex trafficking scandal, dies at 41. From Sam Roberts. Virginia Giuffre, a victim of Epstein's sex trafficking ring, who has passed around like a platter of fruit, as a teenager to rich and powerful predators, including Prince Andrew of Britain, died on Friday at her farm in West Australia. She was 41. Miss Giuffre died by suicide, according to a statement by the family. She wrote an Instagram post in March that she was days away from dying of renal failure after being injured in an automobile crash with a school bus that she said was traveling at nearly 70 miles an hour. I feel like that was supposed to take her out. In a statement, her family called her a fierce warrior in the fight against sexual abuse and sex trafficking, and the light that lifted so many survivors. In 2019, Mr. Epstein was arrested and charged by federal prosecutors in the Southern District of New York with sex trafficking and conspiracy, accused of soliciting teenage girls to perform massages that became increasingly sexual in nature. Barely a month after he was apprehended, and a day after documents were released from Giuffre's successful defamation suit against him, Epstein was found hanged in a cell in the Metro Correctional Center in Lower Manhattan. His death was ruled a suicide. Interesting. It was interesting that it was ruled a suicide because, well, nobody believes that it was. I want to look for something here. So there's some bizarre details about this death that I want to put out here. So we'll listen to some of them, not all of them. So I'm going to put this up for a sec. I got to step away from my desk.
Virginia Giuffre's dad and attorney are reportedly questioning how she died. Giuffre was a vocal and visible accuser of Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew. She was found dead on her farm outside Perth, Australia over the weekend, less than a month after. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. We have a lot to get to in this story involving Virginia Giuffre. But before we talk about that case, I want to tell you about our new podcast that just dropped on Wondery Plus. It is Karen, the Retrial. It's really the best place for a recap of the Karen Read case, everything that is going on in her retrial that is literally happening right now, and what's to come as the new trial is heating up. You can find Karen, the Retrial exclusively on the Wondery app or in Apple Podcasts. You can click the link in the description below to listen right now. Now let's get to what we know at this point involving Virginia Roberts Giuffre. On April 25th, she was found dead at her home outside Perth, Australia. Giuffre was American, but she moved to Australia in 2020 with her husband. The couple had 3 children, all teenagers. Giuffre and her husband had been in the middle of a custody dispute at the time of her death. Some members of Giuffre's family say they aren't ready to determine how she died. Her dad, who's named Sky Roberts, told TMZ he wants her death investigated. He points to social media posts like this one that his daughter made in 2019 where she writes, quote, "I am making it publicly known that in no way, shape, or form am I suicidal. I have made this known to my therapist and GP. If something happens to me, in the sake of my family, do not let this go away and help me protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quieted." Giuffre's lawyer also spoke to UK media outlet The Sun and said, quote, "When I got the call, I was like, are you joking? Because there was no sign that was something she was considering." To understand what Virginia Giuffre may have been dealing with at the time of her death, you have to go back to the beginning to understand how so many people learned her name. Giuffre claimed that Jeffrey Epstein trafficked her when she was a minor. She says that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew 3 times when she was just 17 years old. This is the now infamous picture that was included in her lawsuit against the prince. It shows Giuffre and Prince Andrew and convicted trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell smiling at the camera in the background. Prince Andrew and Giuffre settled out of court in 2022 after she sued Andrew the year prior. Prince Andrew has denied sleeping with Giuffre. In fact, he denied ever meeting her. In a now infamous 2019 interview with the BBC, he said this about Virginia Giuffre when she accused him of having sex with her in 2001 in London.
"I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady. None whatsoever."
You don't remember meeting her?
No.
Giuffre had claimed.
Well, that's usually a quick way around the Fifth Amendment. I don't recall it ever being a bad idea before to drink 3 cups of coffee before trying to sit for 3 hours, but that happened apparently. All right, we got to get finished up because the weekly notice is on. So, anyway. Let's go back to where we're going with this. Barely a month after he was apprehended and a day after documents were released, hanging in the cell, we got that one. In 2009, Miss Giuffre was identified only then as Jane Doe 102, sued Mr. Epstein, accusing him and Maxwell, his co-conspirator, and the daughter of the disgraced British media magnate Robert Maxwell, of recruiting her to join a sex trafficking ring when she was a minor under the guise of becoming a professional masseuse. So, pretty sure it's pretty obvious that Virginia Giuffre probably did not self-delete, especially if she's going into renal failure after a school bus traveling 70 miles an hour slammed into her car and she still somehow survived. And she herself even came out and put out a statement not that long ago saying if something ever happened to me, I did not do it myself. So I'm pretty sure we all know at this point. All right. I'm going to skip the car crash in Vancouver. All right. From the New York Times, though, Trump directs Justice Department to investigate Act Blue, Democrats' cash engine. From Maggie Haberman, Reed Epstein, and Kenneth Vogel. President Trump on Thursday directed the DOJ to investigate Act Blue, a fundraising platform that powers virtually every Democratic candidate and cause. The move steps up Republican efforts to cripple their opponent's political infrastructure. It was the third time in 3 weeks that Trump has directed the government to target the perceived political enemy. He has drastically expanded the use of his powers to try to damage domestic opponents, eroding a post-Watergate norm of DOJ independence far more than he ever did in his first term. Holy propaganda. Mr. Trump called for an investigation by AG Bondi into Act Blue, which is used across the Democratic Party's ecosystem to collect donations online. The inquiry is ostensibly meant to look at the possible illegal donations made by people in someone else's name, known as straw donations, as well as hard dollar contributions from foreign donors. Mr. Trump asked for a report on the results of Ms. Bondi's investigation within 180 days. Mr. Trump's action represents a threat to one of the key financial cogs of the left, potentially hindering Democrats' ability to compete in elections. It's likely to please elements of his base for whom Act Blue has become a top target. Congressional Republicans have separately been investigating what they claim are the platform's insufficient security provisions. All right, let's take a breath for a second. For days, Democratic groups have worried that the White House was planning executive orders or memorandums that would target an array of nonprofits. White House officials insisted that no such orders were being drafted and maintained that stance for days. Just over 2 weeks ago, Trump signed memoranda targeting two officials from his first term for investigation. One, Miles Taylor, has been deeply critical of the president. The other, Chris Krebs, was targeted for rejecting Trump's false claims of widespread nothing wrong happened in 2020. The Republican scrutiny of Act Blue has focused on claims thus far unsubstantiated, which is why we're having an investigation to substantiate them, that allows for straw and foreign donations. Federal election law bars straw donations, and it prohibits foreign citizens without permanent residency from donating directly to federal political candidates or political action committees. So, Act Blue is rife with problems, and it's something that we've known for quite a while. The issue with it, and then Republicans had to go back and make their own, which is probably above board, mostly because of the fear of persecution and prosecution on that one. It's the thing of it is, if WinRed wasn't above board, we'd be looking at the exact same kind of investigation into it, except for the fact that the New York Times would be praising this and saying that evil Republicans are just trying to launder money so that they can go back and win elections. But if we're going back and investigating Act Blue, then it's the most horrible thing. It's the suppression of free speech and Citizens United and blah 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 blah. And in full honesty, I think both WinRed and Act Blue should be shut down simultaneously because of the fungible ability of the funds to go. Now, for Act Blue, the way it's supposed to work is you go in, you see the link for your favorite candidate's Act Blue, and you go in and you put $20 into it because you want your favorite candidate to win against the evil Republican. But it comes out to the fact, well, anyway, no, I'm not going to go into what actually happens. That's how it's supposed to work. And then that $20 goes directly to your favorite candidate to go beat the evil Republican. What actually happens with Act Blue And this goes above and beyond the straw purchases because, yes, you can do so. You can donate to Act Blue without a CVV code. So as long as you can get somebody's credit card number, you can make donations wherever you want across. Or as they were saying, you can do straw purchases or straw donations or a number of other things. But the issue with Act Blue is how it actually works is, just like I said before, you see the Act Blue link for your favorite Republican or your favorite Democrat. And you put $20 in because you want your favorite Democrat to beat the evil Republican that's in your district. Now, in theory, your $20 goes to that candidate. But the thing is your favorite Democrat lives in one of the safest red districts in the country. So suddenly now, there's no chance of your favorite Democrat winning. So that $20 gets shuffled out into a big slush fund and goes and moves on to a more contested seat in an easier to win scenario that could possibly be flipped by a couple votes. And it's the same thing with like the Chuck Schumer Act Blue page in one of the safest blue states out there. People go out and donate millions of dollars to him through Act Blue. He doesn't need millions of dollars to run in the state of New York, in the state of New York. He's a senator, so it's a statewide race. A ham sandwich with a D on it could win in the state of New York for a statewide race. So they take those millions of dollars and they shuffle them into a slush fund and they put it out again into more contested races. That's how Act Blue actually works. And then, yes, on top of it, there's a rife of other problems. Now, doing that, if you can trace the receipts on it, that is against donation law. It's against donation limits, and yes, the shuffling of funds around like that in a super PAC is technically not illegal, but you can be sued for bait and switch and misrepresentation. Bait and switch is illegal. And then, yes, you can be sued for misappropriation of funds on top of that, which would be a civil case. Honestly, the straw and the foreign donations, that's probably the lowest part. The lowest issue that Act Blue has. It's the misappropriation and the shuffling around of funds. That's probably the biggest problem with that, but nobody's going to come back out and investigate that. And it's very possible Win Red is doing the exact same thing. Although, again, if they were, I feel like there'd be wall-to-wall news coverage saying it's time to call for the ouster because they're laundering money for evil Republicans. So, I'd like to see an investigation into it. But not for the reasons that are being listed out there. I think that a lot of this is going to be a distraction for the most part. Also being investigated at this point, and this I'm not really thrilled about either. I honestly think that Wikipedia can be as left-leaning as they want because most of us have realized that most of the information on there is fake anyway. So instead of, trying to force them into being objective because it's a private company, at some point we should possibly just go back out and stop using it. I mean, it's good enough for term papers, but Jews Fight Back is the X account saying this. Boom, Wikipedia just got slapped with a federal wake-up call. The D.C. Department of Justice, is dropping the hammer as U.S. Attorney for D.C. is formally accusing the Wikimedia Foundation of violating its 501c3 status by letting propagandists flood the platform with disinformation. Translation, Wikipedia isn't just biased, it's likely breaking federal law. But it's not the go to prison level of federal law, it's more of a lose your nonprofit status. Because yes, as a not-for-profit, you are supposed to be unbiased politically. Wikipedia's tax-exempt status is based on being neutral and educational. Instead, they've been running a weaponized disinformation machine, allowing bad actors to edit facts, erase truth, and rewrite history, all while pretending to be some innocent public good. Which, and again, we all know that Wikipedia is biased, so they should still be continued to allow to operate because, I mean, it makes good fan fiction, for sure, but no, they probably shouldn't have a 501c3 to do it with. So we'll see what happens with this. The Verge trying to make this about Trump goons threatening the Wikipedia. Something good. Actually, I'm surprised I didn't put this on things that I like. We'll do this one and then we'll actually move on to things. You know what? No, we're going to put this on things that I like. That's going to be our last regular news article, the Wikipedia one. And we'll put this one back over here instead. All right, let's finish out the show, shall we? So, as we finish off for the day, we close out our show looking at the Ferengi rules of acquisition, which I'll explain in just a moment if you're new here or you're just hearing this on the audio platform because it got shared for the first time. And then we do a list of things that I hate and just finish off the show with some things that I really like. I used to do things I like, things I hate, but people have told me they want me to end on a positive note, so I'm going to do that instead. But first, the rules of acquisition. Those of you who are familiar with Star Trek, and you guys need no introduction to this. Those of you who are not, the Ferengi, a species of ultra-capitalists who were introduced to be the main antagonists in Next Generation, but were so comical that nobody could take them seriously, got moved into a sort of a neutral commerce race in Deep Space Nine, citing the rules of acquisition, their commandments for their religion, if one might say. On numerous occasions throughout the show, people have collated the rules of acquisition from both the alpha, the main canon, and then the beta canon, the books and everything that don't necessarily follow canon, into a nice, healthy list. Many of them can actually be used for capitalism, but with Roddenberry being an avowed communist, some of them are so over the top that they are more of a mockery of capitalism than anything else. Every week we read one of these rules of acquisition. We talk about how it can be used in real life, if it is one of those that can be used in real life. Otherwise, we make a comment on the mockery of capitalism that goes with it. And if possible, because I haven't really read all the books, but I've seen all the shows, we talk about how it's used in the show. We are on a secondary 98th rule of acquisition from beta canon. No, we're on the primary one. I'm sorry, I did the 97th last week. We are on the primary 98th rule of acquisition from on-screen canon. Every man has his price, from the DS9 episode In the Pale Moonlight, which was the first one to introduce the Vegas Cabaret and the Holosuites. Every man has his price. So let's think just a bit about this one for a second. They say that everything is for sale. I mean, there are a few things that I would be remiss and reluctant to get rid of in my life. My pickup is a good example of that. If the price was right, or it got to a point of disrepair to a point that I hope that it never gets to, I would probably sell it. But I would like to keep that throughout the rest of my life, even if I have other vehicles alongside of it, because it's seen me through some very good points in my life. If somebody came up and offered me 10 grand for my pickup, it'd be gone tomorrow. Well, I'm sorry, 20 grand. 10 grand, I wouldn't do it. If somebody came up and offered me 20 grand for my pickup, it'd be gone tomorrow. There are certain things that do hold some sentimental value to us. Family mementos, things that are irreplaceable as family mementos. Like if a picture of your child were to be considered beautiful to a collection of art collectors, many people would come back out and try to buy it, but for sentimental value, you probably wouldn't get rid of it. It's probably a weird example, but it's the first thing I could think of above the fly. But if you negotiate to the point on, for the most part, common items, things that can be replaced, even possibly more difficultly, because obviously your price is going to go up if the harder it is to replace, then every man does have his price. The art of negotiation is there, and sometimes you'll win. A lot of the times you'll lose, rather. So every man does have his price. You might not even be able to get to that price, but somewhere out there, that price is there. The 98th rule of acquisition. The next time we talk next week, we'll be talking about a rule of acquisition also marked as the 98th from a novel from Beta Canon. Alright, let's do a few things that I hate. So, last year, 2 years ago, I think it was almost at this point, because I think it was still in 2023, when DeSantis was running and I was starting to analyze the races that they were coming in. I had said that I myself was not planning on voting for Trump. I have since gone back on that. I did vote. I filled in the bubble that said Donald Trump, even though it was more of a vote against Kamala Harris, because that woman actually terrified me. But in the end of my video, I pointed out the fact that if Trump were to get reelected, this is going to be the last time that he can. And the neoconservative, the Bushite wing, the censorship wing, the people like that are waiting in the wings, licking their chops, trying to ride a wave of Republican populism to come back in and enforce their authority. Well, apparently in Texas, they just decided to go back out and do this. Now, I hate the fact that this is even being brought up, and I do hate this bill no matter what, but this is not actually this bill isn't actually what it's being presented as. I hate it either way. The Calvin Coolidge Project X's out. Just in, the Texas State House has passed Dade Phelan's bill to criminalize political memes. The bill would imprison anyone who posts a political meme for up to a year if the meme does not have a government disclaimer. What is your response? Which I pointed out, I said, the party of free speech. This is the crap that I warned you about waiting in the wings for the end of Trump term 2. This is the DeSantis part of the party. Now, realistically, in reality, that's not what this bill does, but it's still a direct slap of free speech regardless. KVUE, ABC News, Texas House passes bill to mandate disclosure of AI images and deepfakes in political advertisements. From Daniel Perrialt, the Texas House passed a bill on Wednesday to ban the use of undisclosed altered images in political advertising. HB 366 would make it a crime to use AI in political ads without a disclaimer. The bill was filed by former House Speaker Dade Phelan of Beaumont in true intense debate on the House floor on Wednesday. Phelan was the subject of attacks and memes during his re-election campaign. Most notably, Club for Growth sent out mailers containing edited images of Phelan trying to knock out the incumbent House Speaker. The mailer showed Phelan's head on House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries' body hugging Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. Current state law prohibits the use of AI pictures within 30 days of an election, and those mailers were sent out just outside that window. However, Phelan said that's not why he filed the bill. This is about what your voters believe and what my voters believe. It's not about us, Phelan said. You and I will be a face on a composite in a basement one day. We won't be remembered, but if we don't protect our elections, if we don't do something about the integrity that our voters see on a daily basis, all this is not worth it, because anybody could be up here, an image, a video of anybody could go run for election. The bill's number, HB 366, is the same number of votes Phelan won re-election by, something he referred to Wednesday as just a coincidence. And see, I'm not a fan of any of this. the issue that I have with this, of course, and I know that AI and deepfakes are going to become a problem at this point, at some point. But your voters should be intelligent enough at some point that they can see the fact from fiction. We might have to actually address this as deepfakes get more convincing and more convincing. But as of right now, I mean, they're not convincing enough for this to be a thing. And the issue that I have with it, it's not. I do think that people should be able, or should have to, reveal when they use a deepfake or something like this before it gets to this point here. But when you start to file stuff like this, it's a step towards making political memes illegal. So we're going down a slippery slope, even though I'm told reliably that's always a fallacy. We have another ban from the federal government attempting to come through. Thomas Massey pointing out sodium nitrite is a meat-curing chemical used to preserve bacon and jerky. Congress is voting to ban its sale to consumers at concentrations of greater than 10% because some folks have eaten sodium nitrite to commit suicide. I'm voting no. What's next? A ban on scissors? So, and again, you probably shouldn't be eating a whole lot of sodium nitrite. But you should be checking labels to go back and see for yourself what you're doing. So the government shouldn't be out there trying to ban this, especially if it's what somebody's coming and using for that methodology for. If the person is that depressed, unfortunately, they're going to go back and find another methodology other than the sodium nitrite. Massey, continuing on, was the Youth Poisoning Protection Act just passed the House, a government opt to ban the sale of an oxidizer that can be used to make gunpowder. Did Republicans just fall for a cover story that would save kids from eating it to commit self-delete? I don't necessarily think the government should have this level of authority over something that under normal circumstances is safe on top of it. Like I said, if somebody really wants to go that far, they're gonna find something else to do it with. And yes, this is a real thing. We've got the PDF that goes with it, which again we'll throw in the Discord. HR 1442. A bill to ban the sale of products with a high concentration of sodium nitrite to individuals and for other purposes. This title may be cited as the Youth Poisoning Protection Act. So, it's a 3-page bill. I will throw that up in the Discord for you guys if you guys want to go back and see it. I do think people should take it upon themselves to be more educated about what they're putting in their bodies, though. Definitely. I don't like the idea of relying on the government for a lot of this. There you go, that's in there. The updates part of the show. I've had 2 devices this week went through major updates to their to the user interface. My phone, which Android is slowly devolving into Apple more and more as we go. That's, to me, on this one is more of an annoyance, and I'll explain a little bit why after we look at this article. This is from Sammy Fans, a Samsung blog. Surprise! Samsung Galaxy S21 starts receiving One UI 7 Android 15 update. From Sheetal. After several Galaxy S series smartphones, Samsung has finally started rolling out the One UI 7 update based on Android 15 for the Galaxy S21 series. This major update makes the series of phones more useful, smarter, and more secured. No, it doesn't. Galaxy S21, S21 Plus, Galaxy S21 Ultra smartphones are getting the One UI 7 update with One UI build versions. Blah, 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 blah. Respectively, users will have to download a 3.5 gigabyte update package to install the update. One UI 7 is based on Android 15, which is the last major update for Samsung Galaxy smartphones. These smartphones launched with Android 11 and now have received 4 major Android OS updates. So, mine just updated. I don't know if this is the same Android 15 update, but I looked at the thing first. I'm like, holy crap, it looks like an iPhone. A bunch of the things are moved around. The pages of the apps after the fact are now a scroll wheel, and it's not a flip page like I'm used to. And then the top down button, the notification bar, is the one that throws me off the most, because from what I can tell, I can no longer use that in app. I have to go back to the home screen to look at the notifications for anything that I'm doing. So flipping between apps, because I can't just swipe down from the top anymore. Now I actually have to swipe down somewhere in the middle of the screen. It's annoying. I can come back out and say off of this. I do wish that I hadn't taken this one, but I know that, any phone upgrade I get from the future is going to have this new user interface for it, so I'm stuck with it no matter what. But Samsung and Google continue to blur the lines between them and their bigger competitors, Apple, so unfortunately it's getting there at some point. The one that did annoy me, and this might actually have a hidden benefit on the inside to it, is my Switch also updated this week. From Kotaku, Nintendo's big Switch update adds virtual game sharing and more, with one important catch. From Ethan Gosh, the Switch just got a major update to prepare for the rival Switch 2 in June, version 20.00 released overnight, and adds system transfers to Switch 2 as well as support for the new console's game share feature. And the sharing of virtual game cards. Players have quickly discovered a major caveat for the last part. When using virtual game cards, you can't simultaneously play a game online across 2 separate Switches. It's a confusing hang-up with significant consequences. And there's a big list of the changes that are going to be in this. Now, functionally, actually, like the UI screen doesn't look any different. And I didn't even realize that there was an issue with it until, I updated my Switch Lite first because it said it needed a major update for it. So I said, okay, I'll update do the major update. And then I was playing Pokemon Scarlet at the time when the update popped in, and I said, okay, I'm going to go back in, I'm going to play Pokemon Scarlet again. And it yelled at me and said I had to go update my main Switch, the one that I've been using to play Skyward Sword on, here, in order to use any of my downloaded games at all. So I updated the main one, and then I realized that, it's because they're changing the digital downloads into what they call a virtual cartridge, which means that in order to do so, it has to be, quote, virtually ejected from the main Switch so I can insert it, quote, virtually into my Switch Lite. It does appear that, number one, you can't play, I can't be playing a game on my Switch and then hand my Switch Lite to Palm and have her play the same game, even though she's got a separate account on both systems, because I'm only in ownership of, quote, one copy of that game. So they're treating it like it is a cartridge, but I think one of the upsides and the plus sides of this is going to be, my dad has a Switch OLED that he won in a raffle. So without transferring and possibly losing one of the tiny little cartridges, when I'm over at his house, I'm like, hey, I know that you don't do a lot of gaming, but you want to try this one because, you got the thing, so it's possibly usable. I'm going to transfer you this cartridge. And I think, I'd have to look in this more, you can do this without sharing an account. So it is a minor annoyance no matter what, and I think it would be easier again if it was in a situation where A, they would have told us about it, but B, if it would have been, you can use because you own the copies of the game across all of your platforms, but I don't know. Minor convenience over anything else. Alright. The Shadur Sanders saga. I didn't touch on this last week. I avoided this last week. I want to comment on this one because I've got 3 articles off this, including with former Vikings quarterback Chris Carter. Former Vikings running back Chris Carter accosting Shadur Sanders over what seemed to be a major display of entitlement. So I didn't keep up with this because I'm not a big NFL draft fan. I really only care about what's happening with the Packers at this point. Gosh, I love the Packers. But I was inundated with news for a good week and a half, telling me it's the NFL is racist because this particular player, who is the son of a legendary running back, Deion Sanders from the Cowboys, wasn't picked until the 5th round, and then they got picked up by the Browns on top of this. But I mean, realistically, was it a skill issue? I didn't follow the kid's college career either because I don't follow college ball. So I don't know if this was a skill issue or what it is, but the jump straight to he's not getting it because of racism. Like, where are you getting this from? This is an organization that regularly plays the Black National Anthem, much to the chagrin of its viewers, and they continue to do it, no matter how many people complain and stop watching. Where's the racism here, folks? I don't know. It was an overblown way to try to get another substandard player into the headlines, apparently. I don't know enough about this one. I'm going to skip this one. Of course, the headset thing, and this will be the last one on things that I hate. Then we'll do some things that I like. That'll be fun. But the last one on things that I hate comes to us from Piyush Patel, who is jumping right onto the get rid of headsets train. Piyush Patel says Trump is risking the safety and security of American soldiers by not firing Pete Hegseth. As we said when this whole controversy first started up, this was one of the hardest Trump nominees to get through the cabinet, and of course, the first major scandal goes right to him, even if it is a non-scandal. But let's watch. Let's listen to the video.
There are cabinet agencies where you can hide a low performer. I won't name any of them here because I don't need to hear from my friends that worked in any of those agencies, but there are. If there was one at the top of the list of where you can't hide a low performer, where you need someone strong, it's the Pentagon, because lives are at risk. American lives are at risk. And the thing that is most surprising to me about Pete Hegseth's continued tenure in the job is that the administration is willing to take on this amount of risk. Take on this amount of risk to our national security, and take on this amount of risk to Donald Trump's political future. Because every day that Pete Hegseth is in that job, they're at enormous risk that he bungles a major national security crisis, and they're left holding the bag. He has already made major mistakes. Transmitting classified information in a signal group is a major mistake that in any other administration you would see a cabinet member fired for. That was an excuse to say, look, we made a mistake. Let's get out of this problem before we have a mistake that costs lives. They have to be able to see the risk that they're running. And the fact that they continue to run this risk to their own political future, and more importantly, to the safety of American soldiers, American servicemen and women, really defies belief.
And honestly, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I don't myself particularly care for Hegseth based on the fact that I think he's a military hawk. He's a Bushite in waiting. But what I will say to this is, if you sit down, if you cave, if you succumb to the pressure, then it's going to be your next cabinet member. It's going to be Tulsi Gabbard. It's going to be Linda McMahon. We're compromising this and that because you have this person in your cabinet. They'll go right down the list if you show them that political pressure works, that media pressure works. They'll just go right down the list until you have no more cabinet, and then make it next to impossible. So, all right, now let's do some things that I like. So, Pom and I, the other night, right before my birthday, I think. No, it was a few nights ago. We were just talking about courtroom and things like that, and I got reminded. No, we were talking about perms, and I got reminded of the climax scene of Legally Blonde, which Pom had not seen since she was a little kid. That movie came out when I was 17, so we sat down and watched it. It holds up. It's a really good movie. It's a sweet story. And it's the idea of going back out and taking a bad situation and making the best out of it. I mean, for me, and ironic that it takes place in Harvard because I feel a bit of connection with this, with my life falling apart based on living in Boston myself, where I was able to come back out and take that and make something out of my life. You know, I thought to myself that I was going forward in my life because of a girl, and then I took the things that I learned and, you know, I started a political channel, I got heavier into the mechanic field, I secured a good job, even though that was touch and go in and of itself for a while too. But it's because I didn't stop what I was doing when the romantic portion of my life fell apart. And I think letting the external factors try to define you instead of you defining yourself is an important lesson for us to learn. So, Legally Blonde is, I know it's a very, very girly movie, but it's a great movie. It's a great universal movie. It's a great universal message of, hey, we do need to make sure that we are true to ourselves instead of being true to the external images that other people have made for us. So, let's watch the trailer for 2001's Legally Blonde.
One of the reasons I wanted to come here tonight was to discuss our future.
Of course.
I plan on running for office someday.
Warner.
I think we should break up.
What?
L. If I'm gonna be a senator, I need someone serious.
I'm seriously in love with you.
I love you.
Liar! This is the type of girl that Warner wants to marry. A law student. Going to Harvard is the only way I'm gonna get the love of my life back. For my admissions essay,
Action.
I'm gonna tell all of you why I'm gonna make an amazing lawyer. I feel comfortable using legal jargon in everyday life. I object.
Her list of extracurricular activities is impressive.
She was in a Ricky Martin video. Aren't we always looking for diversity? Welcome to Harvard.
Don't be scared. Everyone will love you.
L? I'm sorry, are you here to see me?
I go here.
You got into Harvard Law?
What, like it's hard? I got a PhD from Berkeley.
MBA from Wharton. I've been deworming orphans in Somalia.
2 weeks ago, I saw Cameron Diaz at Fred Siegel, and I talked her out of buying this truly heinous Angora sweater.
Malibu Barbie lives.
I've come to join your study group.
Our group is full.
Oh, is this like an RSVP thing?
No, it's like a smart people thing. I give it 2 more weeks.
What is this?
We're betting to see how much longer you're gonna last.
You're not smart enough, sweetie.
I'll show you how valuable Elle Woods can be.
MGM Pictures presents.
Do you have a resume? It's pink.
And it's scented. I think it gives it a little something extra.
A comedy about knowing who you are.
Do you think she just woke up one morning and said, I think I'll go to law school today?
And showing what you've got.
We're defending Brooke Wyndham. You can buy her exercise tips on infomercials.
Wait! Exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands.
You're fired.
What?
I have new representation.
Reese Witherspoon.
Do you remember when we spent those 4 amazing hours in the hot tub after winter formal? This is so much better than that!
Legally Blonde.
Oh, look how cute! There's like a judge and everything! Vote for Elle!
It's a great movie. If you haven't seen that movie, dude, go and watch it. Even if you already have the understanding of being true to yourself, you'll laugh a lot. It's great. I like it. I didn't even realize this at first, but this was based on a true story, too. It's inspired by a true story and a novel written by Amanda Brown, a Stanford law student. Brown's experience at law school, including her quirky fashion sense and love for pink, were basis for Elwood's character. It basically draws from the fact that Amanda Brown was a very bubbly, perky, stereotypical blonde who made the most out of herself and still was able to fit in and excel at law school. A school that's typically populated by people drab or like me. So that's great. All right, let's talk about this bill here, the Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investments Act, or if you take the acronym that goes with that, the Pelosi Act, if you will. Josh Hawley has re-upped this. This has been a talking point that I've talked about for a long time. I don't think that our congresspeople, our elected people, should be allowed to own stock. I don't think they should be able to take any stock in with them at some point, because they go and make the laws that pick the winners and losers based on their stock portfolios. I mean, there are people that have gotten rich betting their stocks on the same stocks that Nancy Pelosi buys and sells. That's why we have a Pelosi stock tracker. So the bill, in summary, Preventing Elected Leaders from Owning Securities and Investments Act. The bill prohibits members of Congress or their spouses from holding or trading certain investments, e.g. individual stocks and related financial instruments other than diversified investments or funds or U.S. Treasury securities. The prohibition does not apply to assets held in a qualified blind trust or to sales by a member to come into compliance with the bill's requirements. Specifically, the bill allows for sales by current members during the 180 days following the bill's enactment, and for the sales by future members during the 180 days following the commencement of the services. So, essentially, under the summary, it would force congresspeople to sell their assets, their individual assets. Now, they can still be in a hedge fund or in a blind trust, like most of your 401ks are at this point, where somebody else goes back out and does the investments for you, and then you just go back and keep it in your savings and keep it growing. But if, you're individually buying stocks based on the fact that you've got a law coming out, or selling stocks because you have a law that's going to destroy that part of your portfolio, that would be illegal under this. So, and the Donald himself has vowed to sign this. Let's listen briefly to Fox Business.
Senator Josh Hawley is reigniting his bill to ban lawmakers and their spouses from trading stocks while in office. It's all to prevent elected leaders from owning certain securities and investments. It's called the Pelosi Act, maybe appropriately named for our favorite. I know Jackie's a favorite of hers, because no one buys a dip like the former Speaker of the House. The bill is gaining bipartisan support amongst lawmakers, and President Trump says he would absolutely sign it. Because remember, Americans sent them to Congress to work, not get rich off of day trading. Jackie, I know that you follow the Pelosi stock tracker on X just as much as I do to see what call options she's buying and selling. This is interesting. So this would obviously prevent them from holding or trading individual stocks, related financial instruments, other than diversified investment funds or treasuries, which they could do. Your thoughts?
Well, the brains behind the Pelosi operation is Paul. He's the one, executing the options strategies. She's the one funneling him the information. So it's got to apply to spouses also. And for those who say that, people in Congress also deserve a right to be participants in the market, I think they should be. I just don't think they should be trading off of specific information that will have an impact and material on individual names. They can make money on index funds, ETFs, mutual funds. They can buy the market long through, a blind trust. Somebody can be making those decisions, so it wouldn't probably bar them from being participants. But they certainly don't need to do it the Pelosi way because it's very.
What's the difference between the blind trust?
The Pelosi way. So, I think that I think that the Fox News anchors are right. There should be ways for them to get into it, but just not the way like they're saying, where it's specifically where they get to pick and choose. All right, a couple of the things that I like. Bridget Mendler, former Disney star, raises $30 million for space startup Northwood Space. I always liked Bridget Mendler. From Quincy Thomas over at Yahoo News. Bridget Mendler, best known for her starring role as Teddy Duncan in Disney Channel's Good Luck Charlie, is no longer just a familiar face from childhood TV screens. In a dramatic and unexpected pivot, Mendler has launched herself into the aerospace sector, leading a startup that aims to build a scalable infrastructure for satellite communications. The 31-year-old Harvard Law School graduate is now the CEO and co-founder of Northwood Space, a company ambitiously described as working to create a data highway between Earth and space, according to a report by CNBC. The startup recently secured $30 million in seed funding, led by venture heavyweights Founders Fund and Andreessen Horowitz. Northwood Space, headquartered in El Segundo, California, is engineering a significant, I think there's a typo there, a significant shift in how satellite ground stations are built and deployed. Traditionally, ground stations, which are vital for receiving and transmitting data between Earth and orbiting satellites, have been bespoke, costly, and limited in availability. Mendler's company seeks to change that by standardizing the design and mass manufacturing ground stations. The goal is to offer a more affordable, scalable, and flexible solution for companies and governments managing satellite constellations. In a recent interview, Mendler explained that they would want to build factories for ground stations, democratizing access to space infrastructure. The first ground station product is expected to be deployed and operational by the end of 2024. So there's a lot of money going into this, but and I'm glad to see younger people coming out and taking the initiative. I mean, this could be one of the factory setups that's used and creates jobs here in the US. This is a huge undertaking. It's got the potential to move us forward in communications and create hundreds, thousands possibly of jobs on the end of it. So good for Mendler. While many of our colleagues were descending into drugs, alcohol, and sex tapes and stupid crap like that, Bridget is going out and making a better part of the world. So I kind of enjoy that. All right, one more. A couple more. Let's bring this out here. I just kind of enjoyed this one. So, one of the issues that I've noticed is through the illegal migration side of things, we see a lot of people who live, and we saw this in the Cape Cod thing, in Martha's Vineyard, when Ron DeSantis flew all those immigrants up there and sent them out to Martha's Vineyard to go back and hang out up there because, these Martha's Vineyard overwhelmingly voted for the policies that would have allowed more illegal immigrants to come into the country. But as soon as the migrants showed up on Martha's Vineyard, they were suddenly shuffled back out of the place. So, and I know this is staged, I know this isn't really real, but it's kind of a nice indication of potentially what we could see off of this, where people are voting for certain policies, but they don't want to put their hands out to go back and help. Community Notes and Violations showing us the video of dropping illegal immigrants off at rich liberals' houses. Let's watch.
You would do anything for all the illegals and stuff.
I think we have to be fair.
Guys, this is great. I think we found a new home for you guys.
What guys?
There you go.
Is that your bus?
Yeah.
I don't understand what this is all about.
The immigration. They're gonna move into your house.
They are not.
What do you mean? You just said you wanted to support everyone, though.
Okay, that I don't.
No, they're
Guys,
not violent.
we got a
They're
new
not
house.
violent. They're good. They're
Oh no,
like
hop
that.
it! Just like you guys did before.
Thank you very much.
Can they stay for dinner? Wait.
Sorry.
Well, we have your signature. You guys got to drive back down south.
Back to Home Depot.
You would do anything for like all the illegals
I think
and
we
stuff.
have to be.
There are a couple stereotypes out there that I think a few people would have been uncomfortable with, but I think the point got across. All right, I want to look at this one here. Momentum grows behind President Trump's call to reschedule cannabis. And I moved this to things that I like for a reason. Now, I don't know if the president is actually going to come back out and reschedule this. I don't think he's going to. I think that there's going to be enough push by the paper manufacturers to get him to stop. But he seems to be interested in this. So scheduling marijuana off of the same schedule as heroin, cocaine, and harder things like that, I think is good. I mean, I'm in the camp of everything should be legalized. But I know not everybody is. But weed in and of itself it's fairly harmless and it's ruined a lot of lives. So if we can get this scheduled back off and maybe get some pardons for people who are in for literally nothing but selling weed, intent to distribute, I think that'd be a good thing. So hopefully we get this going off of this. We'll see if he actually comes back out and signs it or not. And then lastly, on things that I like, and I listened to this video before we went live. From Razor Fist. After years foregoing drama due to the lies and libel of others, it appears I'll be ending a few YouTube careers this week. No one who doesn't deserve it. It's a shame that some people can't seem to hold a gun without putting it in their own mouth. Now back to the rants. I'm going to listen to a little bit of this. I mean, this is a 20-minute video. We're not going to sit here and listen to the whole thing. And I'm going to talk a bit about my own experience with this and the fact that I wish that at the time I'd have been able to come back out with receipts and seeing where the blackmail is and really what happened with this. But let's listen to just a bit.
This will be the one and only time I've ever addressed these fatuous accusations. On the subject of defamatory nonsense, particularly promulgated by the Perma Online Brigade, I tend to hold with a quote from the great John Milton. The best apology for false accusers is silence, sufferance, and honest deeds set against dishonest words. But I also knew that while the accusations were libelous and shockingly simple to disprove, they were also entirely too lurid for some talent-bereft drama humping half-wits not to make the mistake of attaching their channels, reputations, and indeed their entire careers to, after which I would drop my reams upon reams of receipts and end their careers overnight. So I hope you fellas enjoyed the 2-week victory lap I allowed you all to have, because now karma comes to collect. And if you thought Pro Jared had receipts to prove his innocence, buckle up, bitch. Fortunately for me, I don't even really need all of that exculpatory proof to disprove the most serious of these claims, because as many of my fans have already helpfully pointed out, the available timeline already disproves them. If I were to allege that Elon Musk robbed a jewelry store on June 13th at 6 o'clock p.m., seems to me step one in establishing or annihilating that allegation would be to check the surveillance footage on June 13th at 6 o'clock on the dot. So, as internet sleuths have already deduced, due to the age and birth date of the accuser, in order for this relationship to have occurred when they say it did, I would have had to be dating this person in, or throughout, 2015. Any later than this and the entire timeline collapses. Fortunately for me, 2015 was also significant in that it's the same year I began streaming in earnest. The name of that series is Razor Fist Arcade, and the entire thing is publicly available in a single handy playlist on my channel's front page and has been since 2015. In fact, if you click on only the third video on that playlist, a live stream of the game Thief 4 that originally aired on March 18th, 2015, you can disprove these allegations within about 30 seconds. Because at that point in the video, a woman's voice can be heard.
Do you ever plan on playing or reviewing the original Dark Souls?
Yeah, I've heard the original Dark Souls is a lot better than 2. Hold on.
So, the video goes on, and I encourage you guys to watch this. I'm going to put this in the Discord as well. Goes on to talk about an abusive relationship, very much that wasn't exclusive or anything else like that, where it seemed to be extortionary more than anything else. But there was a point about halfway through the video where Mr. Fisk points out the fact that especially in a bipolar disorder relationship, an abusive relationship as well, the abuser doesn't necessarily have a personality of his or her own. I'm going to use her in this recollection based solely on the fact that my experience twice happened with females. But in a situation where you're being abused, in my two situations, never physically, but both emotionally, I've pointed out that I never knew that this was a BPD thing, so listening to this video kind of helped put some things in perspective from my past life. But in both of the very, very abusive situations that I've been in, at both times the women were actually, once I got to know them a bit after our breakup, were nothing like the women that I was dating throughout the time that I was with them. In fact, it seemed that they had tailored an entire personality around the idea of attracting me and putting me into a situation where I was close by them, with the girl who attempted to convince me to self-delete, wanting to be more country, more into the idea of being around country stuff and liking country music and auto mechanics and things like that, whereas realistically she was nothing. She felt like she was learning of this whole thing and wanting to be into it and everything, but realistically she was nothing like that throughout her entire life. She just sat and listened to me as we got to know each other and created a character that would be irresistible to me. And my last live-in girlfriend before Palm as well she was the same way. The woman that actually was there and the woman she became after we moved in together was absolutely nothing like the woman that I was dating. And it was, again, it felt like it was a character that was created to attract me, bring me in, so that I would basically subsidize her living situation so she could go back out and fix her credit and go out and buy the house, meanwhile leaving me with absolutely nothing. I never knew that it was a bipolar thing, and that's part of the reason that I enjoyed this video so much, and I wanted to touch on this and thank Razorfist for putting this one out there, because it put a lot of things in my life into perspective, and especially in the case of the last live-in girlfriend, the Gecko Girl, had to do with the fact that I also know for a fact that her sister has been diagnosed with BPD. So Razor points out the fact, and when he put these into words, it clicked in my mind. He said, people who are abusive with bipolar disorder, they don't have a personality. They develop a personality by listening to the person that they're abusing and developing something that's basically irresistible to the person, to their mark. So I very much appreciated this. I have quote tweeted this. I will put this in the Discord. If you haven't listened to it, go through and listen to the whole thing. It's 20 minutes, so something to go ahead and put on while you're making dinner or something. And speaking of making dinner, it's lunchtime, so we had another just about 3.5 hour stream. I was getting really mush-mouthed at the end. Did I drop off at some point? Oh no, my recollection is backward. I was being dyslexic. I was looking at that thinking to myself, well, my record time is 3:31, and it looked like it said that my live time was 3:26, but no, it is 3:36. So no, it's all right. Where is my webcam? Here it is. Anyway, wow, we're done. Hey, there's the cupcake in the background too. This was a good stream. This was a bit of an emotional one for me, and I might lose a few followers over this one, just based on the fact that I'm not Trumpy enough. But we're here. We had a good time. We spilled the beans, of course. But yeah, we're done. Let's throw some outro music up. And then we'll go over and raid the weekly notice with Stephen Ignoramus. Where is it? No, that's the registry file. There it is. I found it! Well, thank everybody who came by and hung in with me and joined me throughout the stream. It was long. I know it was getting really mush-mouthed at the end too, so I did a little bit of the drinky drink last night, so not maybe at my best form, but we got through everything. We talked about it. I did some soul searching through this one as well, definitely, especially looking at some articles where I didn't know who was in the right and who was in the wrong and who to trust. So anyway, we'll be back here next week for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. I am hoping to do a game stream this afternoon. I don't know how that's going to go because I got some other projects I need to take care of, but we will see what happens with that. Thanks so much for coming by and hanging out. We will be here next time again for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. It's going to be great. Stick around if you are on the Twitch side for the raid into the weekly notice, and take care.